Yes, everyone, welcome back to flatcapeurotalk. Been a long, long time. Much apologies, but I think I'll make up for it with this one. I think you'll really enjoy this one. It is going to be a very in-depth World Cup predictions video where I am going to sort of take a look at all the various teams throughout this World Cup, kind of give you an in-depth profile that maybe you don't exactly get sort of with your average World Cup predictions. I do like to get into the weeds. I do like to get a bit nerdy about it, and so I do hope that you do enjoy this one. Anybody that is tuning in, do smash that like button. Good to have you all back here. Hopefully you do enjoy this one if you're also watching it back as well, because I do understand doing this kind of right before the World Cup as well, sort of doing it right before the deadline, kind of a bit of a buzzer beater, if you will. But everybody do appreciate all the support nonetheless. But Davo, here to kind of have you along as maybe my partner cry, but maybe he's also a guiding sort of a guiding maybe pick, because sometimes I might overthink it with all the research that I might have done today, Dave, and you might come with it with a bit more of a, let's say, I don't know, the mainstream maybe picks with some of it, let's say.
No, look, let's wait and see. I have my own picks for the World Cup. I have my own dark horses, my own Golden
Yeah.
Boot winners. So, let's get into it. I'm excited. Look, regardless of what's going on around the World Cup, at the end of the day, it's still a beautiful tournament, regardless of all the take the politics and all aside. I know it's hard, but it's still a beautiful tournament. It's where the game is at its best, in my opinion.
Absolutely right, Davo. Absolutely right. We already got some good few in the house. Got Paro Miguel Escobardo, KPV, and United Spurs of America. Also, congrats on the 400, Jacob. Absolute legends over there, and I
Oh,
really did have
legend.
a good time. Had a good time
Congrats,
chatting with
man.
them yesterday. Had a really good time, and also everybody do also check out their Friday shows. I think they do a very good job over there. It's good vibes over there, and KPV, absolute legend, and also I don't know if you'll like my England predictions, KPV, but don't take it out on me. And maybe I'll be harsh on the Yanks as well. Just to be fair, I'll be harsh on the Yanks too. Para Miguel Escobardo, I'm very frustrated to not see the likes of Nigeria in this tournament. I actually think they have some pretty talented players, so it does show that maybe they probably slipped up in some way not to make it into the tournament this year. Big up, Nick. Good to see you in here as well, my man. And really, is always a pleasure. But as we're kind of welcoming people in here, we're going to kind of maybe get sort of warmed up here, Davo. And I kind of maybe, instead of sort of going into the predictions, as you can see here, everybody, this is what we're really going to get into. Maybe just kind of give away sort of some of my thinking about this tournament, because you could kind of maybe already get an idea where I'm coming from with already some of these kind of answers here. When it comes to the Golden Boot, I've actually gone for Neymar in this one, Davo, because I do think Brazil are going to go quite far. Neymar, this is probably the most in form we've ever seen him in probably some years, if not one of the best seasons he's ever had over at PSG. He's an absolute menace right now. And when we do know Neymar is at his best, he's pretty much unstoppable. I think he does have that sort of almost Messi-like ability where you can't really do much once he really is kind of feeling himself and once he really
Yeah.
is doing whatever he wants. And I think that's kind of what I'm getting from Neymar this season, Dave. I'm starting to see a much more focused Neymar. He is kind of a guy that just turns it on when he wants, sort of thing. And I think this is a season where he's turning it on when he wants. And it makes sense considering that this is probably alongside a certain Lionel Messi, his last World Cup, I would say as well, or at least his last World Cup in his prime. You would say Neymar for sure. And it'd be quite spectacular to see if he were to spoil Messi's parade and maybe spoil Messi's party and actually take it all for himself there. And Neymar, Dave, we all know that he's going to be taking the penalties. We know he's going to be taking the free kicks. We know he's going to be taking the corner kicks. We know he's just going to basically be involved in pretty much everything around the Brazil goals. And if they do end up scoring a lot of goals, and if they do end up going far in this tournament, I imagine Neymar will either be the guy setting up the goal or he'll be the guy scoring the goal. That's how I sort of see it with this team. And so I feel like maybe he's not the most common Golden Boot name that I've seen out there, but I feel like he should be given some shouts here, especially if Brazil go far. He's also, I think, penalties have to be taken into consideration when you look at Golden Boot.
Yeah. Do you know what, Jack? I think Neymar's a good shout. I don't fancy Brazil this competition. I'll be honest. I don't fancy them. Me, I think it's hard to look past. I've got a few names, right? Hear me out, Jack. Obviously, Harry Kane. But, this is the sort of group where I've seen England go out of groups like this before in World Cups. I mean, the one out in Brazil, prime example. And it's kind of like, Wales are going to be up for it. You've got the tensions with Iran. You've got your country as well, the USA, who They got a decent squad, you know. They got some players that play around Europe in there. So
H.
I'm,
H. Kane, maybe Golden Boot. Is there a chance? No.
I'm gonna say he's my first name because even if England do get out of the group, and I do think maybe he'll be able to bag a couple of goals, but I think Thomas Muller from Germany is in with a shout, Jacko.
Oh, I wish.
Last World Cup. Trust me, I wouldn't write him off. I think you've got Benzema from France, Mbappe, Griezmann, can't write them off, and then Leo Messi from Argentina. They'll be the names I'd put forward. But I do think Argentina are going to win it, so I'm going to go with Lionel Messi for Golden Boot, a swan song.
I think Jacob said to me yesterday, Dave, that if Thomas Muller scores, I think it's like 7 more goals in the World Cup, which means he would have to play in another World Cup for sure. That would mean, though, then I think he then breaks Miroslav Klose's own Golden Boot record or whatever it is for the World Cups, which would be kind of ridiculous if like 2 Germans were to sort of break each other's records for that. It does show that they definitely score a lot of goals when it comes to these tournaments, that's for sure. Good to see you, Czar Spurs in the house. And believe me, Ecuador did a bit of research on this one. I think you're going to like what I have to say on this, Czar Spurs, I think. And also, I guess they are in Group A, so just stick around. Really, don't have to wait too long. We're going to be speaking about them very, very shortly. Big up, Mark Swift. Really do appreciate the support, my man. And hopefully you enjoy this one. Like I said, just spoiler alert, not going to be too nice to the English in this one, Mark, but I'm not going to be too nice to the Yanks either, I think, in it. So don't you worry. It's going to be even. I'm actually going to be quite kind to, I think, Wales is how I'm sort of feeling it right now. I think Wales sort of developed superpowers, Mark, during these tournaments, but really appreciate the support, my man, and also everybody else in the house. Big up Shamu, wearing Shamu's shirt, Dave, and I'm repping the Croatia kit here that Shamu gave me, and it actually is a Rebic kit, and Rebic has not been brought to the World Cup. He's not been included in the World Cup squad, which I don't know. We'll talk about it later, Shamu. We'll talk about it later. I kind of have my thoughts about that. They've gone with a very veteran Croatia team, which, you know, I have my thoughts about. But more questions here, Dave. Dark horses. I feel like there's always different interpretations of what a dark horse is. Some people think it's like a dark horse is like the team that you think could win it, but maybe not everybody thinks can win it. I sort of just see dark horses as like a team that maybe no one is really talking about that actually might sort of surpass the average expectations of maybe that sort of team. And I think the two that maybe come to mind here for me are Serbia. If I'm not mistaken, I think if they do well in their group, they actually have sort of an easier pathway than I think other teams might in this tournament. They also, I think, now being in this World Cup, you can actually look at the depth of players that they do have to pick from. Very solid, very, very tall as well. Perhaps they might be good from set pieces. So Serbia, they're also going to be the team I'll be rooting for the most. So I am going to put them as the dark horse. Japan, we'll talk about later, Dave, as a dark horse and the reason why, but they're my other one. And I think there's maybe a variety of reasons for that one. I actually think they're kind of secretly kind of a tricky squad, and they kind of look like they could make some teams, perhaps Spain and Germany, maybe slip up a bit. But do you have any dark horses that you're thinking about in this tournament, Davo?
Look, I'm going to say Croatia because I don't think many people are talking about Croatia going into this one. I think when I look back at them for my whole lifetime, they've always gone deep into competitions. It's their mentality when they go into these competitions. They give it their all, and for me, I think it's hard to look past Croatia. And the other one I'm going to put forward is Uruguay, Jacko. Good history in the competition, but you're talking Cavani, Suarez, Cáceres, Martin Cáceres as well. Like, there's a lot of players at Uruguay where it's sort of their last competition. But then you've also got Bentancur on absolute form as well. If he can carry that into the World Cup. So I've gone with Croatia and Uruguay as my two dark horses.
I like that. I like the Uruguay shout especially. And Croatia, yeah, you're right. They always make it further than people probably give them credit for. Daniel Larson, good to see you, my man. You absolute legend.
I'm surprised you didn't pick a Croatia, Jack, and you're wearing the jersey full of itches.
You know, Dave, I try to make it hard on myself. I try to go super hipster for this one. And I even going for it right here. I've gone even more hipster on it. The dark horse, I think, to perhaps win it all. If I were to find a dark horse of all of them that I actually have secretly a lot of confidence in, and I'm sort of maybe, I don't know, maybe putting a lot. I'd put some money on them, if anything, actually, are the Danes. I think the Danes are kind of like, I'll talk about it later when I do the profile on them, but I feel like I'm getting sort of mini Argentina vibes from that kind of a Denmark team, where it's like nothing is, going wrong with the squad when it comes to, like, rivalries or cliques or anything. Everybody gets along. Good manager by the looks of it, good tactics
Mm,
by the looks of it. They all fight for each other. They're all on the same page. Good squad unity there, good squad depth also as well. I think they have more players than they used to, kind of maybe in the forward lines as well to pick from. I think
mm.
Danes actually could go for a bit of a big run. And we all know, Dave, when Højbjerg as well is playing at his utmost prime, he is basically going to be one of the best midfielders, maybe secretly this tournament, if he's playing, his true
Mm.
Viking strength.
Do you know what, Jack? I would agree with you on Denmark. I really would. Like you, I've been very impressed with what I've seen from them from the last Euros. There's a very good togetherness there. There's a lot of players that will run through brick walls for that Denmark team as well. They just keep going, keep going. And Zinedine Salzburg has been on form this season. So, yeah, I would agree with you. I think Denmark is a good shout. Maybe potentially could we be overlooking one of the African teams, Jacko? Being in the
Yeah.
heat and all, it might actually suit them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Here's the thing with the African teams, Dave, is that
Actually,
I would put Senegal in there had Sadio Mane maybe not picked up that injury, and
mm,
had he not maybe been missing the World
yeah,
Cup. Senegal, I think, easily are in there. I just don't know about the coaching of those teams. Like, not saying it's bad or anything. I just
yeah.
don't know anything about the tactics, don't know, like, if the coach has been there a while, that sort of kind of stuff. Because I think that goes a long way, right? Is if the players are on the same page with the coach, the players are on the same page with each other. It's almost squad unity actually goes very far in these sort of
Mm,
tournaments. Sometimes it's right. The sum of the parts team can actually do quite well. It's not always just the individual strength with
mm,
it. Sometimes we might fall victim to that when maybe looking at teams. You have to look at sort of the vibe that seems to be,
mm.
about that team, I think, going into the tournaments. But
I
that's
was
just
I
me.
was thinking about Morocco myself, Jacko, but there has been a lot of
Exactly. That's a good example of,
in-house fighting,
yeah.
and that's what's kind of turned me off them because in that sweepstake we are on TV to draw for it, and for the pot Tika was pot two. I wanted Morocco. I was like, do you know what? Give me Morocco. They've got some decent players there. The heat, everything else. They could be a good outside bet. But when I've done a bit of research into it, squad unity ain't so much going into this. So but look, you never know. I think SAR Spurs is a spot on here, Morocco or Denmark.
Yeah, definitely so. Definitely so. Good to see you, Alexander Hilton, as well. But everybody, just thinking, yeah, I got one more here, tab open, and then we're going to get into some of the profiles of these teams. And then we're going to start getting these groups picked here. Breakout star for this one. I have gone again, Dave, very, very hipster with these ones. Nicholas Jackson. No one's ever heard of him. I didn't even know anything about him until today. But by the looks of it, with Sadio Mane being out in the World Cup, they are going to have to find a source for goals here, Senegal. And if Senegal, let's say, Dave, are one of those African teams that you mentioned that do, let's say, make a big push
Mm,
and are, let's say, a dark horse team, let's say Senegal do, and in fact, end up being one of those dark horse teams, they're going to need somebody scoring the goals, and they're going to need somebody to be that
mm,
sort of. How did I sort of think about it? Maybe like a Damsgaard, kind of like was for Denmark, right? A guy that sort of like comes out of nowhere and steps in.
yeah,
Nobody's ever heard of him
yeah.
before, and he fills in that role for a star player. I think Nicholas Jackson is the guy to do it. Let me check in on the profile here just quickly, but I believe he plays over. Yeah, he's at Villarreal, actually, Dave, and he's sort of really highly rated, at least talent wise. But
Mm,
apparently, he's kind of one of those talented youngsters that's very inconsistent, can have like a
yeah.
brilliant game in one and then go completely anonymous the next, which I sort of just then think like that is the perfect recipe for him to just have a perfect World Cup then, if he's that sort of player. And if he's going to be given a chance for the Senegal team, not saying he would, or he will for certain. I don't really know too much about the
Mm,
team, but if he is going to be given a chance, I don't know, he might be the guy. And I listened to like a podcast as well where they did talk about Senegal for all about 3 minutes, and they did mention the guy's name as well. Just in with my research tied in with it, Dave, I felt very proud of that prediction. And then I think the one that maybe you might know about is that guy
yeah.
Yusuf Makoko over at for Germany's team, and he's very, very
Dortmund.
young, and they don't always have, in true German fashion, don't really have a true recognized striker kind of in the
Mm,
team. Makoko is kind of a more of a striker, you could say, who does enjoy playing up top, perhaps he could be the breakout star for this one.
Yeah, I really like McCullough. Followed him at Dortmund. He had an incredible youth record, banging him in. He got a few games in the group stages last season in the Champions League. He's actually done well for them so far. He's scored 2 crackers there not so long ago. I really like Yusuf McCullough. I think he's definitely a shout. I wouldn't write off Gavi or Pedri for Spain either. I really like them young boys. You know, they're really good, tidy footballers. Wasn't it Gavi that was at the last tournament for them? Or was it the Nations League? I think he made his debut in at like
Yeah.
16 or something like that,
Yeah.
and he was
Yeah.
absolutely outstanding.
Mm.
So for me, I find it hard to look by one of them as well, Jacko.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, they did make their big debut under Luis Enrique. That is true. Alexander Hilton, dark horse to win it is Netherlands. Dark horse not to win it, Serbia, Morocco, Japan. I'm with you there. Underperforming horse, Germany. It's always that case with Germany. I think they're always a good shout for
I
a
would go
team
Spain
that
this
can
year for
slip
that.
up. I think it's going to be Spain or Germany, and we're going to get into it. I think one of them is going to slip up pretty bad. I'd be surprised if they both look really good. I think that would be kind of funny if that was the case, where they end up both being like good looking teams. Usually it's going to be one or the other that slips up in some brilliant fashion. But big up, Alexander Hilton. Good to see you, John Stokes. Appreciate you tuning in, my friend. But yeah, everybody, I think we're going to kind of get into some of the profiles of these teams. And everybody, I would say, welcome to stick around. But, this is sort of the research that I put into it. So apologies for kind of nerding out here. But let's take a look at Group A. Group A, they have actually a Spanish manager, Qatar, Dave, and it's Felix Sanchez. Weirdly, though, I feel like Qatar perhaps could be a better team than maybe we might give them credit for, because they won the Asian Cup, ? Actually, and that was ahead of some teams that we actually might sort of rate going into this tournament. They might not actually be, in fact, the worst team in this tournament. It is actually hard to produce citizens of Qatar for the team, so there might be actually fewer naturalized players than you'd expect. There's actually a lot of people that do qualify to play for the team that have not been born in Qatar, or have been born in Qatar, but like sort of lived there for 10 years kind of thing. And it kind of makes sense. I mean, there are a lot of Americans that are that way that sort of have maybe lived here for 10 years and were born here, but ended up living somewhere else, right, for the rest of their lives and things like that. So I think Qatar, being a country of also a very small population, funny enough, actually, you do not need to be a citizen in order to actually play for the team. And I did a bit of research as well. They're a notable player to maybe take a look out for is Almoez Ali. He's their top scorer, I guess. But Dave, yeah, you said a documentary. Sorry, I interrupted you.
I watched something on it the other day. Yeah, I watched a little piece on it the other day. There's a few Africans. I think there's 1 or 2 Brazilian sort of players there as well. It's madness. I don't know how they get away with it. I generally thought you had to be either born or have a mother or a grandparent to be able to play for your country. I didn't think you could like bring people over and let them live there for a while and then cap them and then.
Yeah. It's a bit strange though, because they actually don't have as many like naturalized like Brazilians though in that team.
Well, I will say with Qatar, they sent a lot of their players over to Europe to play, to get experience and that since they gained the World Cup. So, look, I don't think they'll do well at all, to be honest with you.
But do you agree with this part, Dave? They might not actually be the worst team in the tournament, sort of thing. That's what I'm thinking, actually. Secretly,
they're not going to be as bad as everyone is expecting, I don't think. No, but they'd be one of the worst, I do think. I do believe that.
Yeah, I just think they might not be the worst. And maybe that's an interesting shout. Ecuador here, actually undergoing a bit of a golden generation, and Czar Spurs confirmed this to me. What I did my research on, Dave, is that they've been winning some under 21 like tournaments of recent. I think one of them was like an under 21 world tournament of some kind. They actually won, and then there was one for like the Copa America or South America division, like they won recently.
Wow.
So I guess they have some golden generation coming through. And then I did a bit further research. Apparently Ecuador have these sort of kind of golden generations that do come through like every 10, 15 years sort of thing. They'll
Mm.
kind of dip out for a while, kind of hide under the radar and world football, then come through again with a big set of players. And so some of those set of players that maybe are quite notable are Ener Valencia, who will be the captain. He's playing over in Turkey right now. Moises
Mm.
Caicedo, Estupinian, Carlos Gruezo, who plays over in the Bundesliga, and then Hincapie. They do seem, though, Dave, like a team that will be kind of like a sum of the parts sort of team, like everybody on the same page, everybody battling it out for each other. I don't really know of any sort of kind of issues with the coaching or anything. In fact, I'm pretty sure they do get along with each
Mm.
other, and they do get along with the coaching staff. So this could be a team actually that, while might not be the most talented at the moment in time, I actually think in the future could be quite talented. And then also they actually seem to have a decent coach at the moment. So it could be actually secretly a team that nobody really knows too much about, but could be quite good for by my sort of estimation, Ecuador.
Look, that's pretty impressive if they've won some South America competitions and that recently. That's very, very impressive because, they'd obviously have to play the likes of Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, and teams like that. So that's fair play to them. Ener Valencia, is that the guy that you played up for West Ham for a period of time, no?
West Ham, I think he was at Everton as well. Is that not?
Yeah, he was in the Premier League for a period of time,
Yeah.
yeah. But you know what, Jack? What I will say with some of these South American teams is they're gnarly, they have bite about them, and they'll run themselves into the ground. They'll beat Qatar tomorrow, definitely.
Yeah, I think you don't be surprised if they actually end up being a lot better than maybe you might think they'll be.
Mm.
And like I said, maybe questionable goalkeeper. So I've heard as well as our Spurs, but maybe you can confirm that to me. But yeah, like I said, this team could in fact be secretly quite good, and I think they'll be in future tournaments for from
Mm.
what I can tell by the looks of things. Senegal, AFCON champions, as we know, Dave, but without Sadio Mane for this one. Originally, a very, very secretly strong team, but without their leader and icon, Dave, I am actually quite
Mm.
worried. They do actually have a manager. They have the longest serving manager, I think, of any African nation that's played in, I think, the World Cup or something like that. I think their manager's been with them for 7 years. So that does show that there is some sort of kind of at least establishment there. There's some sort of
Mm.
foundation. There's some roots there, you could say. Um, I feel like, though, with the fact that they lost maybe Sadio Mane, this is why I kind of gave Ecuador a bit of a shout, Dave. Stronger chances for them, I think, with the likes of Sadio Mane out. They still do have some good players, though. That Nicholas Jackson we mentioned, Ismail Assar, of course, over at Watford. Bamba Dieng last season. This is a Marseille player. He had a really good season
Mm.
last season, 7 goals and 1 assist. Idrissa Gana Gueye over at Everton, Papa Gueye at Marseille. This guy seems to be a really up and coming midfielder over at Monaco. I've never heard of him before. Did some research though. Abdou Diallo, of course, went from PSG to Leipzig.
Mm.
Koulibaly, and then Mendy over at Chelsea. So as we know, Dave, they do have the bones of a good team always,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Senegal, and we always have to take that into consideration. But anything maybe that you have any comments on Senegal?
What I will say, Jack, is I think they have a good spine of the team. Edouard Mendy's a very good goalkeeper. I like him. Midfield, you've got Idrissa Gana Gueye. He's a very good ball winner. I like him. He's very industrious. Going forward, look, I like Ismail Assar. But what I will say, with Mane's absence, it's a chance for someone else to
Yeah.
step up and grab the reins of the nation. And like you said there, Ismail Assar, Bamba Dieng, there's
Or
no
this
reason
Nicholas
why.
Jackson kid, Dave. You never know. You
I've
never
never
know.
heard of him, Jacko. I've never heard of him, actually.
So that's why I'm
Nicholas.
getting sort of Domsgard vibes from him. I'm feeling like he could just pop out of nowhere, right? I mean, some sort of guy that's right at an up and coming club where they get developed, isn't really heard of or spoken about. All of a sudden, right, just comes onto the scene and just does something. And I think maybe if he's given a chance, could be him. Ismail Assar, maybe more of a realistic shout, but definitely has to be one of these two, if not at least two of them, in order to score the goals. They need
No,
somebody to come through
I,
for
I,
this.
I think Senegal will get a group. Like I said, I think they've got a good spine of the team. For me, I don't really envisage them getting too many problems. Maybe Netherlands, the only other team, but I think them and Netherlands will come out. I think. Look, I did watch the African Cup of Nations. I watched what I could of Senegal, and I watched the final as well. I like Senegal, Jack. They're not going to be easy beat. They'll get out of this group for sure. It's
Yeah, I
good
think so.
togetherness with them.
Yeah. And then last but not least, certainly is going to be the Netherlands here. It's actually a dying Van Hal, Dave, if you didn't know. He's apparently, I think, going through cancer quite severely, but the man just lives and breathes football. And that's all he wants to do is just coach football and just be there
Mm,
as long as till his, dying breath, really. It's quite powerful. It's quite
mm,
moving. So there's something that needs to be mentioned, I think, about that when it comes to this team. There might be some sort of, I don't know, more togetherness or more sort of camaraderie,
mm,
maybe than maybe your average team with this one. Have your
mm,
favorites, of course. Have a history of slipping up, though. I think kind of the Dutch, in kind of in certain fashions, especially even with Van Hal, he does have a history of slipping up. Very very young, but also experienced team. I think very good mix of them. Attractive brand of football, but they are coached well enough is kind of the question mark. I don't really rate
mm,
Van Hal too much as a coach, Dave, but like I said, I think he used to be a very good coach. Maybe football sort of passed him by a little bit, but we'll see how he does with this Dutch team. And like he said, he has a very good relationship with these players. Cody Gakpo, a guy that I've shouted out for years, is obviously going to have, I think, a really big tournament, and he's going to be a big player for them. Bergwijn, Depay, and
mm,
Gakpo, I think, is a very powerful front three there. I think something that also Noah Lang, too. It's just a lot of good forwards
mm,
to choose from. Xavi Simons, of course, is going to be one of the big name players there. Coop Miners, I think, as well over at Atalanta. De Jong at Barcelona, and then Van Dijk, De
mm.
Ligt, Ake, Dumfries, Malasia, Frimpong, Jurien Timber there, Dave. I mean, it's just a very good team. It's just a good team, the Dutch. And so I think we're going to
There's
have to look at them a bit more seriously than even we have in the past, is what I would say. I actually think they're better than what they usually are.
Look, Holland are well capable of their own real bad fuck ups. Um, they're very capable, but this Holland team, Jack, they'll get out of this group. They'll top this group. Like you're also missing out Daily Blind, experience operator there,
Mm-hmm.
Stefan De Vrij. You've got Jeremy Frimpong. He's I wouldn't write him off at wing back. He could really make a name for himself. Actually, that's the guy that was at Celtic that got his move to the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
He could very well have a very good campaign, Jacko. Davy Klaassen again, the Rune. I was pissed off with these selections, actually, Jack, personally. You know how big of a fan I am of Ryan Gravenberch. I
Yeah.
really wanted him to go, but I see what Van Gaal has done here, Jack. There's some really exciting players in that Dutch team, but then you've got some real sort of long-term shrewd operators in Martin de Roon, Davy Klaassen, who just have that know-how, that experience, tournament experience as well. You got Vincent Janssen actually going still, which is absolutely crazy. He's not going to do a thing. I would have, if Clash and Huntelaar still about, I would have rather brought him than Vincent Janssen, to be honest with you. But you
Yeah.
know what, Jacko? This could be a dark horse is Wout Weghorst,
Yeah.
with the likes of Qatar and stuff like that. Just put the ball in the box and get him on the end of it. They won't be able to deal with that.
Yeah. I mean, launch it. Time for the launch of
They've
football, you
got a
could
bit of
say, for the
everything in
Dutch.
that team. Like they've got pace, they've got skill, they've got some shrewd, steely, just
Yeah.
know-how operators. They've got a good, strong backline, centre back pairing of Van Dijk and De Ligt. You know what I mean? So, do you know what?
I like the
They could
mix
be
of
a dark
age in that
horse.
team all over the
I like
park as
that.
well.
I like that team. I really like it,
I
Jack.
like the fact that Depay is sort of the veteran of the front line, but then you have like the up and coming Depay or
Cody
the up and coming
Gakpo.
Bergwijn and Gakpo. I think those two together and Noah Lang, all those guys are big up and coming players, but they have Depay as sort of the leader
Mm,
right amongst them to sort of take the pressure off of them. I think also as well you have De Jong, and then you have like you said, some Martin de Roon, some other really kind of sort of more experienced midfielders in there.
mm,
And then the same thing with the defense. You have Van Dijk combined with a young De Ligt. You have De Vrij still. It's a very healthy mix. I think that
mm.
team. So he maybe picked a very good squad by the looks of things.
Yeah,
Actually, Van Hal,
it's
he
a
picked a
strong
good team.
squad.
Yeah,
It's the strongest Dutch squad I've seen go to a competition in quite some time.
yeah. There you are, everybody. Senegal or Ecuador, Dave. Here's where we make a decision.
Senegal.
I think it's going to be Senegal, maybe because of that nous they had in the AFCON, right? Where that's not an easy tournament to win. They have the experience. They also are a very sporting nation, so I can
Mm,
tell. So I'm going to say that they just have a lot of backing. They maybe will know what to do without Mane. They're sort of probably going to maybe get a boost of it. It goes two ways. They either lose it all or they sort of get some motivation from it. Ecuador, sadly, I think are going to miss out. But we gave them a good shout there, Czar Spurs. And, we, as you could saw, the notes there were prevalent. We did a bit of research into it. So we didn't just overwrite them. We didn't just overlook them. Time to get into Group B here. England. Dave, let's just start with them. Last chance for Gareth Southgate to win a tournament. Last chance for him to do anything of real significance. He has gotten far, but he's not exactly gotten over the finish line, you could say. I think this is a harder tournament than it was for Russia. I think the Russian tournament, Dave, they actually had an easier sort of pathway. The teams in there were slipping up a bit more. Right now, at this moment in time, at least the appearances is that the Brazil, the Argentinas, and teams of this world, like, I don't know, I don't remember them being as strong as they were in Russia. So it might be a tougher tournament for them to win. So you could say that Russia was a better chance for them. Missing some very important players, I think, in Reece James. I think Reece James is a huge miss for them, Dave. In fact, I think he's probably the best right back they had to choose from and was probably going to get the most out of them. And also, if they wanted to play a back four, I think they could maybe have gotten away with it with the likes of Reece James. Biggest problem, though, as we know, something we're familiar with the Spurs fans, Dave, is that defense. And I think if they are going to have issues with the defense, they're going to have to do something that we do. They're going to have to go to a back five. And by the looks of the squad that he picked, I think he is going for a back five. From the looks of it, I think they're going to go for what, Dave? Like a 5-2-3, or kind of like us, like a 3-4-3, something like that. I think if they pick Maguire and Eric Dyer, that's just going to be hilarious, and it's going to be problems galore. The back five is a must, though. I think, like I said before, with such poor defenders, a good chance for maybe Trent, though. I guess if he is going to be included, you would rather play him in a back five. If I were going to pick their back five, Dave, and I know Gareth Southgate's not going to pick this one, I would go for Trent as the right wing back. I'd go for actually Kyle Walker as the right-sided center back. I'd go for actually Ben Scheidt in the team as well, maybe through the middle or as the left-sided center back. And then I'd do Stones in the team as well. Then I'd actually play Shaw as the left wing back. But any sort of comments on that defense, Dave?
Look, I'll start with, I actually think they've got three very, very good keepers to pick from. It's the strongest keeper pool I've seen England have go to a competition. So I don't think that will be a problem. I think Pickford, it could be in for a very good tournament with the likes of a Ramsdale and a Nick Pope really pushing for that spot. And you move into the back line. Now, Jack, I think the biggest call was him taking Trent Alexander-Arnold. When I look at England in past competitions, their problem is actually creativity. They're very boring to watch. And like, they rip up the qualification campaigns against these minnows. And then they get into the tournament and they're against well-organized teams and they really struggle to break them down.
Yeah.
And what will help them is them balls from Trent Alexander-Arnold, them crosses. He has the passing ability. He can shoot. So for me, I think he's actually got to start at right wing back. I would actually play Kieran Trippier at left wing back. He's done that for England. He's done that for England quite a lot, Jacko. So I think he will be in for a shout at left wing back. The only change I'd make to your defense is I'd take out Ben Scheidt, because you'll never hear me say I want any Alphabet duel, and I'd actually put in Connor Cody. But it is their biggest weak point. Like Trent going deep into the competition, he will get caught out defensively.
Yeah.
But can you give him that license to just get forward and not worry defensively with Kyle Walker there? You could do that. You could get away with it. But I do think, like, look, even if they get out of the groups, I think come quarters, semis, when they come up against real star-studded attack lines, Maguire, Dyer, if they form that back line, they're in for big, big trouble. Now, player I really like, Jacko, going into midfield. And I really...
Yeah, what did they do in midfield? I wrote Bellingham and Rice, because if they do only two midfielders, they can't exactly put some creative mid in there. James Maddison doesn't fit in. Mason Mount might not even fit in. I actually, sadly, kind of similar to the Højbjerg train, I actually think Mason Mount's quite a good player. But I don't know, Dave. What did they do in midfield? Is that what they go for, Rice and Bellingham, or do they go with Rice and Phillips?
No, for me, I would go with a Rice and a Bellingham, Jack. I think if you play Trent Alexander-Arnold right wing back, you play a Trippier left wing back. You've got two wing backs, bomber forward, who both have very, very good deliveries of the ball. In that midfield, you've got someone like Declan Rice, and I would go with Jude Bellingham as well. I think you've got two players that are well capable of nicking a goal. But you've got two of the hardest working midfielders in world football in Bellingham and in Declan
Yeah.
Rice. And they're both big, strong guys, 6 foot plus, win headers. They like to tackle. They can spray a passes as well. And with Jude Bellingham, I'm actually predicting him to be. I didn't want to put him in as a breakout star because for me, he's not a breakout. Everyone knows about him. But he's a player I think could walk away from this tournament with his head held very high. He's got
Mm.
goals in him as well, and he's capable of getting forward. I really like what I see from Jude Bellingham. So they would be my two midfielders, maybe with Jordan Henderson or Mason Mount coming off the bench maybe before Conor Gallagher or Calvin Phillips.
Yeah.
But I would go with the two big boys because what you do then going forward, Jack, is obviously you put Harry Kane up front. But I think Sterling will start one side. But then for me, bring
Yeah.
in someone like a Phil Foden. He's got goals. He's creative. He
What
can
do you
play
do?
these lovely
Foden,
around the corner
Kane.
balls.
What do you do? Foden, Kane, Saka.
Yeah.
What do you do? Yeah.
No, I would go with Foden, Kane, and I would go. See, Raheem Sterling hasn't really been on form this year. I think Gareth Southgate will stick with Raheem Sterling. He's got good loyalty there with these guys. Me personally, I would actually go at Harry Kane, Phil Foden, and I would probably, to be honest with you, Jacko, I would actually go Jack Grealish. I think you've got plenty of creativity there in that team. Then I think England could have a
Mm.
real different sort of competition if they went with that team. A lot of creative players in there. Look, Saka's another shout. He's a different option. You can get on the ball, make things happen as well. But yeah, I just
Yeah.
worry about their backline. I really do. I think it'll become
No,
costly.
in a backline. You can't ignore a bad backline. You really can't. The Dutch have had some good players, but no great players other than Van Dijk. But outside the starting 11, not much depth in the squad. They'll walk the group, but once they meet a real side, they'll go out. I feel like
That is
I
the
feel like
best.
their squad is good actually at Believe me, I think the squad is good. Here's where my question lies. Is Van Gaal really the right manager though? That's what I'm
Yeah,
wondering. Is Van Gaal a good enough
yeah.
manager to win them those games against the bigger teams? I do feel like though they do have a good team, especially in the forward lines. They have very, very good players to pick from in the forward lines. That defense, I think, is unbelievable, if you ask me, from the players they have to pick from. And then it's also the midfield is maybe where they're probably not as deep. I could say the midfield, but I don't know. Like you're kind of scraping the barrel, I think, if you're looking for,
What I would say is I
criticisms of
wouldn't.
them. Yeah.
You can't write off the know-how of the experience in a major competition. You cannot do it. In fact, most World
Well, they
Cups,
kind of lack
all
that,
the older
Dave,
players always
because
look better.
they kind of lack that because isn't it Van Dyke's first World Cup or something like that? Because it just shows how long they've been, outside of the World Cups and whatnot, right? They've been to the Euros and everything, but they've been
Mm,
missing these tournaments. And it's actually Van Dyke's first World Cup or something like that. Ridiculous, which is sort of crazy to even say out loud. Like the last time they were there, Dave, was the Robin Van Persie World Cup in
yeah.
Brazil. So they did
Mm.
miss the Russia one. So it is something to be said there.
Yeah, I just wouldn't write off the know-how. Like in and around some of them youngsters, like I said, you've
Uh-huh.
got good solid pros, the Rune.
Mhm.
You've got there's one of the who else is it? Davy Klaassen.
Mhm.
You've got who else? There's another player in the back line there. Daily Blind. They've got some real solid no professionals, know-hows in and around that team as backups to come off the bench to out games. I wouldn't write off this Holland team.
Mm. Good to see you, Welsh gal. Big up, lads. I'm back in
Yeah.
Cardiff. Pleasure to meet you, David Dermatron. Not that interested in the World Cup, to be honest, but Wales, come on. And then Denmark, absolutely right, Welsh gal. And believe me, we'll give you your Wales a good shout. We'll give them a good profile. Don't you worry. And really appreciate your support as always.
Yeah.
Ed M also saying, I seen England training in the middle of the day. Absolute mental. You train early morning and evening in that heat. That's what Brazil and Portugal, Argentina, etc. are doing. You have to sleep during the day in that sort of heat. To be honest, Adam, I did find it quite funny that it was only 81 degrees. I enjoy a
Fine.
nice 81 degrees. Like that's actually sort of my like, prime sort of temperature. I understand that not everybody's sort of used to that sort of kind of thing, but I feel like I don't know how much that plays a factor with teams, but if it really is only like 81 degrees and it's quite dry heat as well, like for some people that's really not that bad. Like I think some people are quite used to that, or in fact can handle those sort of temperatures quite easily. But if it is more like in, let's say, the 90s and things like that, then I think it's going to be rough and it's not nice for anybody. But there are countries, including even Americans, that are quite used to like an 80 degrees, and that's it's quite simple, I think, for them to deal with. But I could be totally wrong. I could be absolutely talking waffle here, but big yourself up.
Mm.
Yeah, no, yeah. United Spurs of America showed a hilarious video yesterday of the England lads all kind of pelting in the heat and definitely not handling it well. Let's talk about the Yanks, Dave. Likely, I'm thinking they're going to struggle because of poor coaching. I think I don't really know too much about this team. Like I've said to you before, not very well researched or even a really passionate fan of the U.S. men's national
Good
team.
history over
But
England and World Cups, though, Jacko.
good history over England, Dave. That's for sure. And we also do have a bit of togetherness always, I think, in these ones. We are one. We're kind of like the
Mm.
Danes, I think. In fact, we are more the sum of the parts, to a sense. We do kind of like to come together and sort of, let's say, take advantage of the fact that maybe teams might write us off, sort of, so to speak. We kind of go in
Are
with,
you
I
the
think, a
youngest
chip
squad
on our. We
going,
go in
Jack?
with a chip on our shoulder sometimes. I think the USA.
Average age of 24, Jack. Are you the youngest squad going?
I did hear that we're the youngest squad going into this one. I think it's just the case that our best players just happen to be young, Dave. It's a golden generation that we're kind of going through right now,
Mm.
right? And so it makes sense
You're
that
doing
you're
well.
picking some of the younger players. Here's my problem right now, though, Dave, is that similar to England, though, that defense is a big, big problem for the USA. Matt
Mm.
Turner or Horvath are the goalkeepers, not even Zach Steffen. He didn't even bring Zach Steffen on the plane. So it's going to be
Mm.
it's going to be the Gooner, Dave, or it's going to be Horvath, who I think plays in like no, he's the Luton Town goalkeeper. Yeah, Horvath is. And so it's not really looking very good there at goalkeeper. Serginho Dest, I do not rate as a defender, simply as, like, I just think he can
Mm.
be really taken advantage of. The back line don't really look that great, to be honest, with the players they
Mm.
have to pick from there. I feel like we're a much more technically gifted American team than what we're usually are kind of in tournaments past. But we
Yeah.
don't really have as much of that American grit, so to speak, than we
Yeah.
usually do, Dave, which I think is kind of funny, right? So we're sort of replacing that American steel with maybe a bit more kind of technical players in the team. So we're not
Mm.
going to be, I think, as much of the stereotypical American team as we usually are. I think the midfield is where our depth is. Brendan Aronson,
Yeah.
Gio Reyna, Pulisic, Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa is that guy over at Valencia who I do really rate as well. But the
Mm.
big question is who will play up top. They have some pretty decent MLS players to pick from, I think, actually. There's a guy named Ferreira who's not too bad, but they didn't
Yeah.
bring Ricardo Pepi, who's that kind of up and coming player for us, who moved out over to Bundesliga and is making his way over there. But they didn't bring him, which is I think
Mm.
sort of maybe a bit of a Southgate decision. So if anything, Dave, the USA are actually probably a pretty good team. They have a bad backline though,
Mm.
and I don't think they have a great coach. That's all I got to
Yeah.
say.
Look, I think that's what's going to let you down, Jack. Because like, I think even if you do get out of the groups, I think the quality of the coaching will probably show what if you do get out of the groups. What I will say is where I think you will have a chance. I think you've got some very young, energetic players in there. If
Mm,
you can press teams and win the ball back and go at them quickly at a relentless pace for 90
especially with like a Tyler
minutes,
Adams. Yeah.
yeah. Aronson as well. I really like him, Jacko. I believe I found his brother over in Germany. I sent you on I want a scout report. But I think, look, midfield, you're okay. I think forwards, you're okay. I think you've also got Tim Weah there. Isn't he a relation to George Weah, World Cup
Yep.
hero?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. He's playing over in
Yeah, I think
Liga.
that's his son, isn't it? I really like Gio Reyna, Jack.
Yeah,
Really
he's a
like
baller.
Gio Reyna. His father was a baller as well, by the way. Also played over in Germany. Yeah, I just think, look, your back line, your goalkeeper, and your coach, and if you do go out the group, may let you down. But you done well in your Gold Cup, done well in your qualifying. I think you're an outside better getting outside this group. I really do. I just think the lack of World Cup experience might let you down. Because if I'm correct, I think when I
Yeah,
look at your squad, DeAndre
absolutely.
Yedlin is the only one with World Cup minutes. So for
No,
me, I
Dave,
think
this one's a warm up. This one's a warm up for us. It's a warm up World Cup for the next big one. Then we'll win the next one, is what I'm thinking. We'll win the next
yeah, but look, you know what, Jack? America, what I will say is they've good history over England. I think they bet them in, 1950? And then I think 2010, didn't they draw with them to top the group and get out? I think under
Yeah. Yep.
Was it Jurgen Klinsmann? Maybe I'm wrong. Or
Yep.
Bradley?
Yep. No, you're right. Yep. It was Mr. Klinsmann.
They went far on the Klinsmann that time. So, look, I think it's between you and Wales. I think it's between you and Wales. You get off to a good start, and like I said, if you can't press teams relentlessly and play quick tempo football, I think you could be a surprise. I think you could shock a lot of teams in that heat. Because in the World Cup, I expect, especially group games, to be very slow tempo, this, that, and the other. Whereas if you can press and make them run about and use your youth to your advantage, you could have a couple of upsets.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about those Welsh, though, Dave. Much better coach team, I think, though, than the USA. That's kind of, I think, the problem. I think that does come into
Rob
it.
Page.
Yeah, exactly. And he showed, I think, a bit more experience than Berhalter, right? And that's the issue, is that the USA coach goes into this with no experience going into these big tournaments. Last World Cup for Gareth Bale. That means he's going to develop more superpowers than he ever has, I think, when it comes to these tournaments. And that is sort of the core of that Wales team, is sort of his superpowers. The forward areas are always a strength for them, as well as the defense. The midfield is where I think they really lack depth and quality, though, Dave. Goalkeeper question marks as well. Wayne Hennessy or Danny Ward, pick your poison there. I think no one really rates either. Ben Davies, Joe Rodon, Chris Meffam, Ampadu, Nico Williams, a good core defensive players actually there, I must say. Guys that are no nonsense, just know how to get stuck in, will work hard as well. Joe Allen returning from injury is a big issue, I think. And the fact that he's sort of a guy that they rely on still for that midfield, I think is not a good sign. If they still rely on the likes of a Joe Allen, bless his heart, but they probably still shouldn't be, really waiting for him to get back from injury. Harry Wilson, of course, he had a recently good game, I actually think, against the likes of Man United. Aaron Ramsey has dyed his hair back to the Gooner blonde and not really liking it, but that does mean he also develops superpowers once he dyes his hair that color. Very light in quality in midfield, but in attack, Dave, they do have the likes of Gareth Bale, Kiefer Moore, Brennan Johnson now, right, who they can add to the players to pick from. And then Dan James, who had, again, a really good game against Man United most recently, I must say. So it's almost like if this is the last chance for maybe a Gareth Bale surge, they're already really happy to be here. Let's be honest, Wales. But if they wanted to push on, and Gareth Bale does have those superpowers, they are a better coach team than I think the Americans, Dave. So this is where I'm kind of feeling about it. So feeling like it's England, sadly, and I'm thinking the Americans might miss out, and the Wales get ahead, Dave. Because I think Wales. I think Wales. It's the coaching. I'm just gonna say it's the coaching and it's the experience.
Well, Jack. It's
the experience too that the Welsh have.
I think it's the experience, Jack. It's the camaraderie. I mean, that Wales camp, they're close, Jack. They're very close. Like they all work for each other. And you know what? They actually revel in being the underdogs and causing upsets. Mad to see Chris Gunter still there. Spurs had him in like 2006, 2007. We signed him on a double from Everest. I think it was either with Andy Reid or Michael Dawson. Madness. Anyway, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it will be England. But you know what, Jack? Change. I don't know if England will top it. I don't know.
No, it's a risk. It's a risk to see them top it. Is there a possibility that this is the thing? Do Wales top the group? That sounds crazy. That Wales will top it. I feel like the
Jack,
USA, Dave,
you got to remember
because the USA, I feel like, have a stronger chance of topping the group because USA and Wales play each other first, if I'm not mistaken. And then if the USA let's say, win that game, and then they go into the England game next, like with all that confidence, I think then the USA have a good chance of topping the group. I don't know what the Wales, like with Wales, like I feel like they will lose to it. Something about me tells me that USA have a better chance of beating England than I think Wales do. I think Wales have a lesser chance of beating England.
Do you know what it is, though, Jack? It's like everybody wants to beat England. It's just the way it always
Yeah,
is. I don't
all
know
three
why.
of these teams. Yeah, all
Everyone
three.
wants to beat England, all right? When you look at it, Wales came up with up against England in the group stage of the Euros, not the last one gone. I think the one before that. And they got a result out of them. But you've also got to remember, England are coming in off the back of this of being smacked up by Hungary. They had a very poor UEFA Nations League, being bet by Germany and that as well. I think there could be an upset here, Jacko.
Yeah, you think I should switch it around?
USA have good history against England. I think they're in World Cups. I think they're unbeaten against England, weirdly enough. And sometimes things like that continue. Like England might draw with Wales, might draw with USA and beat Iran and be enough to get out of the group. I think it's going to be a tight group. I'd leave it like that. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see England, Wales draw, England, USA draw, England beat Iran. And then it opens up for anybody. It's going to be a tight one.
There's also something to be said about how that Iran and England game, like going into it cold, right? Two teams going into it cold. Iran are going to play the most disgusting Simeone negative football. It's just going to be beautiful.
They got a few tiny players as well.
It's going to be. Well, I'll get into it quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on it as much as I did. No, Dave, believe me, get me into the hipster research here. Believe me, I love it. But what I was going to say is, this Iranian team, Dave, like if you thought Simeone played negative football, I think they are going to be playing like all 11 men behind the ball, probably 4-4-2, something just absolutely glorious in sort of a defensive shape. But they do have Taremi and Sardar Azmoun up top. Sardar Azmoun, of course, over at Bayer Leverkusen, a guy that you maybe had heard me before say on this channel that I thought we could have signed as maybe a backup for Harry Kane. Yeah. And then
the Iranian Messi.
Yeah, and he's quite brilliant actually in terms of sort of just he's a good number 9. Like that's what I would say. He's a good number 9. He's very athletic. His father was a former volleyball player, I think, for Iran or something. And so he's like 6'3", 6'4". Sardar Azmoun is, Dave. He jumps really high. Like there's a really good bounce on him. Very quick as well. He played at Zenit for a while, and as you know, I do like those sort of hipster teams, and so I watched him in the Europa League plenty of times.
He played for Brighton.
Jahanbakhsh is actually over at Feyenoord, and Feyenoord actually made it to the Europa Conference League final, as we know, last season. And Jahanbakhsh had actually a pretty good tournament. Jahanbakhsh had a pretty good tournament for them, so he's kind of a weird one. Mehdi Taremi is also that guy over at Porto. He's one of their strikers. The funny thing, though, is that Sardar Azmoun and Taremi, Dave, they don't actually get along because Sardar Azmoun has recently made posts kind of in, let's say, solidarity with the protests against the regime at the moment. He's made like kind of a, let's say, Instagram posts in support of the protesters. And Taremi is a very, let's say, pro-regime at the moment of Iran. So, in fact, Sardar Azmoun and him don't get along. It'll be interesting because I thought Sardar Azmoun was going to be left off the plane for that reason because some of the players are even being forced to sing the national anthem. It's a lot of kind of weird situation with that Iranian team. So if they ever had a chance, I think it's been ruined by the fact that there are kind of some weird kind of stuff going wrong kind of in behind the scenes there. But those are sort of kind of my in-depth sort of research on that, as in-depth as I could get, let's say. Let's move on to Group C here.
Just quickly, Jacko. Shamu says we'll keep you updated on the Ireland game. Do not. I'm watching it after, so I don't want to hear anything about it, Shamu.
Oh, okay, good. I was going to say no spoilers. No spoilers, everybody. Group C, Argentina, Messi's last World Cup, of course, Dave. Copa America winners, heavy tournament favorites, long-term coach as well. He's been there a while. They're an undefeated team. Good vibes going on in that dressing room. Recently, though, they did lose Joaquin Correa and Nico Gonzalez, I think, to injury, but they, of course, are Argentina and they have plenty of players to choose from. They can now boast a very cozy and strong defense. The whole squad is looking strong. They have some really good veterans in that side, too, with the likes of Otamendi, Di Maria, Messi, of course. Honestly, Dave, the shithousery is on point as well. Maybe some of the most experienced shithousers I've ever seen across football in this team. You have the likes of Christian Romero, who's a top-class shithouser. Your favorite player, Dave Paredes, who's a top-class shithouser. They have both Martinezes, who I think are both top-class shithousers. Emi Martinez, the one at Aston Villa, is such a shithouse. And then the likes of Lisandro Martinez, I think, is also a bit of a house. And then Otamendi as well can be, a bit of a naughty one. The defense is just brilliant. So many good players to pick from. They have some decent fullbacks. I would say left back is maybe a bit of a question mark. Acuna over at Sevilla, I do rate, but I'm questioned who they're going to play at left back is kind of what I'm curious about. For midfield, though, Dave, Rodrigo de Paul, who's actually going to be on the market actually in January by the looks of things, I actually think we should take a look at if we were to buy a creative midfielder. I really like him. Enzo Fernandez, heard he's an absolute baller. He's over at Benfica. They do have McAllister, who I do think Spurs should be keeping an eye on.
I can't believe he nailed it.
Shows he's not good, Davo. If anything, I think their midfield is actually their weakest, which is just weird to be saying, because I think you're then sort of scraping the barrel, if anything, if you're going to call their midfield the weakest, or sort of kind of just looking for flaws, if you ask me. And then when it comes to that attack, last but not least, Messi, Di Maria, their two last World Cups for both of them. I think Di Maria has kind of like been a secret baller his whole life that maybe he's never gotten enough appreciation. Lautaro Martinez, Dybala, I mean, so many more as well that you could throw in. But Dave, I mean, Argentina, tournament favorites, so many things that I just said there. Maybe the shithousery point, is something that also could be brought up. This team, I think you're not going to get in their heads or anything. They just, I don't know. This is a scary team. Scary team.
Do you know what, Jack? This is a team that is really together. I mean, how many times have Romero gone over and come back late? There was rumors, or they wanted to request the teams to let their players rest for the month of November for the World Cup. But interestingly enough, they're off the back of beating Brazil for the Copa America.
You're right.
They absolutely hammered Italy during the summer. And I think they're 3 games off the longest winning streak in international football. I believe as well, Jack. This Argentina team, there's a very good togetherness. And when I look at that team, Jack, they've got some hatchets across that back line. Trust me. A lot of forwards are going to cower away against that back line. Midfield, they've got some young, hungry players in there. Even the likes of Ezequiel Palacios, Thiago Almada, Julian Alvarez, who, by the way, I got it wrong. He's a lot better than what I thought. But I'm allowed to get
hungry players. You're right. I didn't even think about that. Hungry players in that team too. Like in case something were to happen, let's say a certain big player drops out, hungry players to take their spot that are good still, good players.
They've so got right about good strength in depth there, Jack. Very good strength in depth there. For me, they have to be tournament favorites. They have to be. I mean, they're the most on-form team coming into this competition.
I think the shithousery is the part that's not been mentioned. I think the shithousery is the point that's not been mentioned. Like Romero, Paredes.
Both sides. They can do both sides of the game. They can just play you off the park, and they can get nitty and gritty with you. You know what I mean? They have that dog in them. It's kind of like they're going to be a very, very hard team.
Kind of have everything. They sort of have everything by the looks of it. Ed M saying Enzo Fernandez, that guy over at Benfica, could be actually the breakout star of this World Cup. That's a good shout. Maybe a good talent for Spurs to take a look out as well. I really like that shout. Saudi Arabia, not much to say. Likely, I actually think this could be the worst team in the whole tournament. Not one single player. Not one single player that plays outside of the Middle East in this team. Not one single one. So all I would say, Dave, is best of luck to him. Best of luck to him.
I remember these guys going to World Cup and being slapped up 6, 7, 8. They're an embarrassment. They probably will be the worst team yet.
I actually hope they maybe consider hiring like a Simeone or something, because that would be their only shot at being able to do anything in these. Just try to put maybe try to sneak on an extra player and put him behind the ball as well. Mexico.
I'm going to waste my time on them. They're going to get slapped up.
Mexico, I think, are a very weakened and worsened Mexico team. I'll be rooting for them very hard, though, alongside the Yanks. They're kind of like probably a lot, apart from the itches. They'll be kind of the team they'll be rooting for, kind of the second most, is what I would say.
Their goalkeeper's crazy though, Jack. He had a phenomenal World Cup last time he was
Yeah, I
there.
know. Ochoa is a legend. I actually wrote in my
Yeah,
notes, goalkeeper Ochoa is still there. Laughed my
he's a
ass off.
legend.
I
He had
actually
an
laughed that he's
unbelievable
still
World Cup. He
there.
saved everything.
It's gorgeous that
Absolutely
he is.
everything.
I think victim of poor coaching, though, from what I've seen and from what I've heard from kind of people who do follow the Mexican national team. I think they do say that they are a victim of poor coaching. Often can be, be some bad squad dynamics with that Mexico team too, Dave. They can kind of go
Mm,
into tournaments either all on the same page, or they can go into it where there's kind of some clicks and things
mm,
going on there. The defense is very questionable, kind of like the USA's. Lots of kind of you could say MLS players in the case of the USA. In the case of
mm,
Mexico, lots of Liga MX players there. So there is maybe some question marks. The midfield, though, Edson Alvarez is definitely the player to watch for them. That guy over at Ajax. The last World Cup for the legends of Andres Guardado. If anybody's ever known of that guy, he played over at PSV for a very long time. Andres Guardado and Hector Herrera, who's also a very, very long time Mexico El Tri player. He played
mm.
at Atletico Madrid. He played at Porto for a very long time. Eric Gutierrez seems to be maybe some guy to look out for in that team. He's also playing over at PSV. It's kind of interesting that there seems to be a long sort of kind of I don't know. It seems like PSV seem to have some sort of talent scout by the looks of things over with Mexico, because they have a long history of players that seem to go over there. Their forwards, Raul Jimenez, of course, Irving Lozano, but no Jesus Corona, Tecatito, as people like to
Is he
call him.
injured?
Yeah, no, I don't know, Dave. Maybe just not picked because, again, like sometimes certain players, they get, on the bad side of the coach. There's always kind of weird things going on with that team. Like I'm saying, there's certain players that have always been really good, even that are Mexican nationals that never have even
Mm,
played for the team because of various reasons. There's a lot of weird stuff going on always with that team. So I
yeah.
don't know how they'll do. Really, how we'll judge it is when we finish up here with Poland. Similar to Mexico, I think they're probably nowhere near as good as what they probably used to be.
No.
I think they'll
Yeah.
likely suffer again from coaching issues. This Poland team, very old and experienced players, Dave,
Very
similar to
boring to watch.
very boring to watch. Good point. Similar to Ochoa, though, Dave, the likes of Chesney is still around. That guy Glick is still
Mm,
around. He's going to
yeah.
be playing. Krakowiak is still around. This guy who was at West Brom forever, Grozicki, is still around
Yeah.
in that team. Matty Cash, though, of course, they actually have a weirdly good defense. This Poland team, because they have Matty Cash, that guy over at Roma, Zalewski, I really like.
Yeah.
Jose Mourinho also really likes him too. So I would say that's their player to watch. What I wrote down is Zalewski. Piotr Zielinski, that guy over at Napoli.
Yeah.
He's
Very
almost like a better Ndombele is what I would say. He's so saucy with the way
mm,
that he dribbles. Just everything he does is just so ridiculous. He's almost like a FIFA Street type player, actually, Zielinski is. And then you have Arturas Milik and Lewandowski up top, two big number nines, absolute vibes. So, Dave, that means we have to pick between these two teams.
Argentina.
I'm
Top.
going them here. And just
Poland.
because I'll be rooting, no, I think Poland might do it, Dave, but I'm rooting for Mexico hard. So I'm going to go for vibes. And I'm going to say the Mexicans do it. But I think Poland are a better team, just a better team, much better team.
I think personally Poland will have enough to get out of the group, but after that they're going home. Going
Yeah,
home.
no, I think both the Mexicans and the Polish do not have a
Yeah.
good team. I think they have poor coaches and are not a good team. So I think it's not going to go well for them.
I'll
It's
be
not
back
going
in
to go
2
well for them.
seconds, Jack. The missus just needs me to grab something for her. I'll be back in 1 second.
No worries. I'm going to continue with my nerdy profiles here,
I'll be back
everybody.
before you finish France because I love talking about it.
Maybe I'll skip France then. I'll skip France here. So we are going to talk about the Danes here, everybody. We're going to talk about those Danish. Very strong squad, good coaching, good togetherness, good vibes, everything you could want in a team. I kind of wrote almost like a bit of a mini Argentina, you could say, where it feels like they kind of have everything you could need sort of in a squad. Of course, they don't have the depth and the near quality of Argentina, but in the kind of the sense of that, they have a good coach over there. They have a very strong squad. There's no cliques or anything going on over there. There's a good sense of togetherness, good vibes, like I said, over there. And when you really look at it, they are a team kind of full of a few shit houses. I think Simon Kjær is a pretty good shit house. We know Højbjerg enjoys a bit of housery as well. Thomas Delaney, too. They are a very hardworking team. They'll sacrifice for each other. The goalkeeper is a bit of a question mark. Is it going to be Schmeichel or is it going to be Oliver Christensen? Hertha Berlin representation. Let's go. Somebody got an Hertha Berlin call up in this team. Defense is solid, I think, with Simon Kjær, Anderson, Christensen. Alexander Ba is somebody to look at. He's actually over at Benfica. I think he's really good right back, actually, that people should look at. Joachim Mela, too, of course. So they're pretty set on that defense. The midfield are absolute soldiers and Vikings. I mean, you just don't want to try to go through that midfield. And they also can surprise you, I think, while also being very sort of hardworking. I think they'll surprise you with a good pass as well. Højbjerg, as we all know, Thomas Delaney, Matthias Jensen, I think, has stepped up this season for the likes of Brentford. He's worked really hard. We all know Christian Norgard is also an absolute Viking. These are like 4 players that will pretty much just do everything in order to clean up the ball and just do all the dirty work that is required in order to get it into the magician that is Christian Eriksen. The forwards are actually more plentiful and I think more talented actually than they used to be. Of course, like in the past, it used to just be like Yusuf Paulson or what's his face, Braithwaite that they kind of used to pick from, right? But I think it's a lot better this time. They have the likes of Dolberg, of course, who had a pretty good Euros last time around. They have Andreas Skov Olsen, who Sean really likes. They have, of course, Damsgaard, who had that huge tournament last time around. They have Lindstrom, who's doing really well over for the likes of Eintracht Frankfurt. And then they have Jonas Vint, who's over at the likes of Wolfsburg. So really, really kind of a good Danish team. And like I said before, I think they're actually a team that, in fact, sort of are secret, maybe dark horses to win it all. Like if you were to pick a team that nobody would sort of maybe think about to win it all, and let's say just be an absolute Cinderella story, I think it's the Danish. Like I said, perhaps like sort of a in the vibes with the togetherness, the camaraderie, the housery, all that sort of things. I think it's kind of mini Argentina vibes is what I'm getting from it. Moving on, Australia, I actually did very good research on everybody. And I did speak to my man Cameron from the Cheese Room over when it comes to Australia. So, any Aussies, I would say do maybe smash that like button because, again, did my research here, everybody. Like to do a lot of research on this stuff because I don't really like to go into sort of things being a bit uninformed. I just love every little bit of details about football, and I am a bit of a nerd about it. So everybody, here you are. Nowhere near as good of a team as the past. I think Australia, in fact, next to Saudi Arabia, I actually think they could be the second worst team in the tournament, potentially could be the second worst team in the tournament. Very poor coaching, so I was told. Very few players to pick from that they usually do that play in Europe. One of the weaker teams, I think, in this tournament. What they lack in technical skill, though, they will make up for, I think, with fight, with grit, with discipline. We all know those Australians, right? If they don't have maybe a ton of technical players to pick from, they will also make up for it, kind of like the Danish do to a degree, with that fight, that determination, that sort of stamina, if you will. They struggled apparently to make it out of the Asian qualifying. Apparently, they finished third in the Asian qualifying, which is not a good sign, and that meant they had to go to a playoff with the UAE. They, I guess, won that playoff with the UAE, which then meant they had to go to another playoff with the 5th place South American qualifying team, which was Peru. They won that playoff with Peru, which is quite impressive. I think Peru are not a bad team. And they won on penalties, I guess so I was told, with Australia. So I don't know. Like, I feel like they're just nowhere near as good as what they used to be. They have nowhere near as good of players to pick from as what they used to. I think the coaching is not really there. It's just not an Australian team that the Aussies, let's say, are as proud of as maybe they usually are, maybe so to speak. Matt Ryan, though, of course, goalkeeper. He's actually over at Copenhagen these days, funny enough. Aaron Moy, who we know is over at Celtic. Their big up-and-coming youngster, who's actually just been signed over for Newcastle, is Garang Kual, or whatever, however you pronounce it. But I think he's some 17-year-old that is, I guess, they're really the youngster to take a look at over for the Aussies. Jamie McLaren, apparently, over at Melbourne City, so Cameron told me as well. And then Matthew Leckie, a former Hertha Berlin player, is also somebody to think about too. But the Aussies, I don't know. Like, it's the conclusion I can make and the research that I did is that they sadly are a lot worse than what you might think they might be. And I don't know, like it's disappointing, but I kind of put them as the second worst team in the tournament. And Dave, it looks like I have you back. What do you make of that? Do you know anything about the Aussies? They, with my research, like I said, perhaps actually could be worse than the Qatar team. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, there's a potential possibility that can happen. Look, for me, I don't see them getting out of this group whatsoever. But just straight away, taking out your hands, put Australia third. No, put Australia fourth, Tunisia third. Anyway, for sure, that's how that group's going.
Ribsy 85 saying, yeah, we won it. Peru absolutely lost. So maybe it's even suggesting that the Aussies could have gotten away with one, like as well, like against the Peruvians there. I heard your goalkeeper also just had an absolute nightmare in that game as well, Ribsy. I heard it was a crazy game between you guys and the Peruvians. So let me know. But if that's correct, Ribsy, where it's actually one of the worst teams that you've ever seen go into these World Cups for the Aussies, like I said, best of luck to you. You know, it's good to always be there at least. At least, you know, you can say you're there. But I'm sorry that it's not as, you know, a team that you can be as proud of, let's say. After researching the Socceroos, all our players are terrible and we qualified on memes alone. It's not looking good, Dave, for the Aussies. It's not looking good.
No,
Argentina, all the way for me, says Dermot. We gave a good preview for them, Dermo, and we did say that maybe the thing that might win it all for them is that housery factor. I think could be the thing that wins it all for them, my friend. But last but not least, or you know, then we'll get on to France quickly. Tunisia, Hannibal. Just quickly, my sister was actually recently in Tunisia, so I do actually have a Tunisian Hannibal kit, so I will be able to sort of keep an eye on that guy. That's about it, though, Dave. So that's all I can say. Hannibal is plays for
I don't know
Tunisia.
about them.
There's really no one else to take a look at. I did do a lot of research just to find one other player, and I guess it's this Anis Ben Slimane, 21-year-old over in Denmark. He plays for Brøndby, which is actually one of the better teams over in Denmark anyway. So perhaps that's someone to keep an eye on. But again, that's really stretching it. And I really nerded out in order to do that sort of research just to find one other player that could be worth taking a look at. But Dave, time to get stuck into France here, and then we'll do our predictions. I think the big thing that needs to be said about this is that the manager I simply don't rate, never rated Deschamps. He's always going to hurt them. There's always soap operas going on over with France, Dave. I think they always have some sort of thing going on with the wives, always something going on with the mothers, always something going on with the players, it seems like, whether it be blackmail or anything, just something weird seems to always be going on with that French squad. Sometimes it doesn't really come to their detriment. Sometimes it actually does come to their detriment. I just think there's always something going on with that team. It's almost like a Real Housewives sort of kind of team. I think the France national team. There's always a ton of egos in there too that you have to look at too, like the likes of Benzema, the likes of Mbappe, all those sort of players. So many big egos. Even Mbappe recently, Dave, he actually made some big deal about some sponsor. He tried to sort of get all the French players to boycott a sponsor of the team, which really caused some controversy just because Mbappe just didn't vibe with the sponsor. It was really weird. Apparently Benzema, there's some weird things going on there, just from what I heard from a guy that is a French journalist, perhaps maybe not the same Benzema, so to speak. No Pogba, no N'Golo Kante, who were the players that did win them that World Cup, Dave, in that midfield. So that could be a huge thing as well. The fact that they're missing N'Golo Kante and Pogba, two huge players for them. That defense is ridiculous. I mean, I would say at least 6 of these guys we should take a look at as Spurs fans for center backs. Benjamin Pavard, Upamecano, Saliba, Koundé, both Hernandez's, Badiashile, Konate. They're well set, I think, when it comes to the defense. But weirdly, actually, it's that midfield that's actually the weakest for me. Chouameni, Camavinga, Guendouzi are, of course, great players, but they did decide to bring Adrian Rabiot, which does, probably contribute to that soap opera. And then I think also Veretout, I guess they decided to bring too. But it's a much more weakened midfield. And then the forward line is ridiculous. But I would say, will that forward line work hard? Is that forward line willing to actually do anything off the ball? We know Mbappe hates doing any work off the ball. Benzema is pretty old these days and actually works quite hard for someone his age. Coman doesn't really work too hard off the ball. Ousmane Dembele doesn't work too hard off the ball. Griezmann doesn't work too hard off the ball. So I'm actually having some question marks there. But Dave,
You're
you
going to
said
see,
you really wanted to talk about France.
yeah, you're going to see the exact same France you've seen that lift in the 2018 World Cup. Yeah, I know they went out in the Euros to Switzerland in the last 16 on penalties, but penalties is a roll of the dice. Sometimes you can be undone in penalties. But look, with Didier Deschamps, Jack, he's a pragmatist. He's and for me, Jack, as well, he's one of the only managers to ever win the World Cup as a player and a manager as well. So he has a history of winning. And he's a very good man manager, Jack, believe it or not. A lot of these players actually get on with Didier Deschamps. And for me, he's just got to do exactly what he's done in the other tournament. Sit there, soak up the pressure, and use Mbappe's pace, Coman or Dembele's pace either side, and get Benzema in the box to put it away. It's a pretty simple plan. I think they've got a good enough back line, more than a good enough forward line. It's star-studded, in my opinion. I actually think if he went with Tchouameni and Camavinga in the middle,
if Benzema is injured, Dave, would that change things for you, or is Giroud like a good enough player to plug in?
Look, Giroud has a know-how. He's still playing at his age, still scoring goals. He has a know-how. He's one of them that can hold up the ball, flick it on, get Mbappe or Coman or Dembele in behind. Do not write off France. I wouldn't. If they play with Camavinga and Tchouameni in midfield, that's a good enough midfield. They're both
that is a good enough midfield.
Both decent on the ball. Pogba's a huge. Do you know what? Actually, right, Kante for me is a huge miss. He's just a workhorse.
It's more the figures. I'm saying, like, it's the guys that won it for them last time. Is kind of how I see it.
Pogba
right?
for me, I actually don't think is a huge miss. I'll be honest. But when I look at Paul Pogba, for me, I think he thinks he's God's gift. To be honest with you, like if he tried more, he would be one of the best players in the world if he tried more. But he doesn't do enough. And when I looked at him for France in previous competitions, he pops up with rare moments, but he doesn't pop up with an awful lot, in my opinion. He's more passenger in the game. I don't think he's going to be as a huge loss as everybody makes it out to be. I really don't.
You're probably right about that, actually. You're probably right. It's probably more Conte that's the loss. And maybe Tchouameni can make up for it. And Tchouameni is just simply ridiculous. The Danes, for me, Dave.
I love
Say that?
I love Camavinga as well.
Oh, yeah. He's also actually a model, funny enough, Camavinga. Denmark, Dave, they also actually beat the French last time out in the Euros. So they did. I think they actually have a bit of a mental, edge over the French. I think, too, actually, the Danish going into this. So I'm going to say it finishes this way with Tunisia finishing above the Australians. I think the Australians are finishing fourth.
I'll be honest. I think France come out first. That's the only change I would make. I do think France come out first. But you're right, Jack, though. With France, they're always weird going into competitions because they can implode at any minute. We all remember South Africa, what went on there. They were an absolute farce. Went home out of the groups as well. So they are capable of an implosion, but they will get out of this, and I think they'll get out top.
Ed M is in agreement with you there that France's squad cannot be written off, and I think you kind of feel the same way about it, Dave. It's definitely something that cannot be ignored. It needs a clip on the air. Pick up Welsh gal. Good to see you in here. Let's move on to Group E. One of my favorite teams. We get to speak about Germany. This is a weird one. I think one of these two teams is slipping up between Germany and Spain. Just would be weird if they don't both slip up. They both have a history of slipping up in these tournaments. They both love slipping up at these tournaments. It'd be quite odd if one of them doesn't. Luis Enrique, though, Dave, is a very good coach, I think. And that's what's also kind of strange about this one is that Spain and Germany, I think, both have really good coaches for this. So it could be the case that they actually both end up just being both good teams. Luis Enrique, he takes it very seriously over there. He has left behind, I think, some notable players. But like I said, he sort of is a good tactician, and he probably knows what he's doing. They have, I think, interesting goalkeepers to pick from. It's more younger goalkeepers like Sanchez at Brighton and guys like that they're going to be picking from. I think all their goalkeepers over at Spain do have a history of blunders, and they do have a history of being sketchy. So that will be kind of interesting. The defense, I think, is very old and very slow. Dave, Azpilicueta, they decided to bring on the plane. Carvajal, they decided to bring on the plane. Jordi Alba, they brought on the plane. Like, come on. Like, these guys are basically like should be in wheelchairs at this stage. Eric Garcia, I don't rate as a defender. I think Eric Garcia is one of the most overrated defenders,
Mm,
honestly, in world football over at Barcelona. I think anytime he plays, they lose. Pau Torres is probably one of their better defenders alongside Aymeric Laporte. I hope they pick those two as the center backs. But like I said, a
yeah,
very old and very slow defense. So when they come up against maybe some speedy Germans, I'm not sure how they'll handle that.
I'll be
Midfield,
honest.
yeah, Dave, yeah.
I'll be honest, Jack. I think Spain are overrated. If I'm being honest, I don't see where the goals are going to come from
Do you
in
think the
that team
manager
going
could help him
forward.
out in this one? A guy like Luis Enrique gave chances to Pedri. He gave chances to Gavi. He is a good manager. Maybe he could almost carry them through actually with
Yeah,
those
look. I
technical
think
abilities.
I would say midfield is probably their strongest point. But there's some weird picks in there as well. I mean, who's that Alejandro Balde guy, the young lad from Barcelona? Where did that come from?
Yeah, no, it's. Oh, that was due to an injury. I think Jose Gaia was left out.
Mm,
But again, Dave, that was another really old player that they were going to bring with them, Jose
yeah.
Gaia. Like it's strange. Like Alejandro Balde is at least a younger player, but I don't know. They went with a lot of experience, but guys that I don't know if are ready for this sort of pace.
Mm,
Maybe of the game. Busquets, they decided to bring. Apparently, too, he's going to be playing alone in the midfield. It's not like they're going to be playing Rodri or like Koke next to him or anything, Dave. He's just going to be back in the old days. Like they're just going to trust Busquets, I guess, to play alone
mm,
in that midfield. I think that's very risky because if they're not on the front foot and if they're not dominating the opposition, I think he'll get absolutely torched. By certain teams, they do have Gavi and Pedri though, which is just superpowers of players to have in that team. I think Carlos Soler is a good player too. In the attack, Sarabia. They do actually have Iñaki Williams' younger brother, Nico Williams, has been brought on the plane, which is interesting. Asensio, Morata, Ferran Torres, Jeremy Pino, Danny Olmo. Dave, I think you're right. Overrated squad, if I'm going to be honest. Uh,
completely.
I don't know. Like, I feel
Germany
like
beat them. Germany
I think
beats them.
Germany will smack them. But I don't know. Like, will Spain get away with it though? Because Luis Enrique is just a good coach. That's what I'm kind of thinking.
Look, Spain created a lot of chances in some of the last tournaments I've watched them in. Uh, um, just can't take them. Alvaro Morata not good enough. Ferran Torres, yeah. Look, if he gets into the back post, he can nick one in behind. Sarabia don't really rate. Nico Williams don't know too much about him. Jeremy Pino, he's a good player. I watched him a couple times for Villarreal. Ansu Fati can make things happen. I'll be honest, I don't really rate Asensio. I think he's really overrated. I think the best part about them is their midfield. Apart from that, back line will be exposed. Not too many goals in the forward line. They get out of the group. How much farther will it go after that? I'm not so sure, Jack.
Yeah. It's just a lot of technically good players, but are they really that good? Perhaps
Nah, they've
overrated.
been shite, man. I don't really rate them whatsoever. From I
Yeah.
watched them in the what's that ridiculous tournament we played? I mentioned it a while ago, the Nations League
Yeah.
tournament, and I watched them at the last tournament they're at. So I don't really rate them at all. The Spanish side, I'll be honest. I
Let's
like
move
Gavi,
on.
I like Pedri. I think they're fantastic, smooth operators in the midfield. I think the back line is gettable. I think it's weak, and I don't see the goals from the forward line. Don't have enough experience either to carry them through.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Dave. And maybe I'm looking forward to seeing what we'll predict then. Germany, Hansi Flick, I think, is their secret weapon. If anything, actually, what's funny, he's sort of their best player if you actually look at it, Hansi Flick, because Dave, he's actually the mastermind behind the Brazil 7-1 in the
Mm,
first place. He was the guy that sort of created the tactics behind that game in exposing the likes of the Brazilians. He's that guy who won everything he possibly could in that
mm,
very short time he was over at Bayern as well, Dave. Didn't he win like the treble, won like another trophy,
yeah,
too? The guy was just winning everything in sight, basically. And that German team or that Bayern team were like undefeated for like a huge stretch of games, I think, as well. They were the best team on the planet by a
mm,
huge country mile. And so that does make you think he is a good manager. He does know how to work with these players. It's not like these players he hasn't worked with before. He has
mm,
history with this German national team. He's not new to the job or anything
mm.
like that. I think there's maybe a good chance maybe that this German team could either slip up really hard or it could actually be a very, very dangerous German team.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
is also a guy, Dave, as we know, Hansi Flick. he's kind of that, what is it, that basketball kind of type manager where he loves to just beat any team 12-0, 13-0. He'll basically just try to outscore any team. He doesn't care if he concedes 2 because he knows that he'll score 7 on you. He's that sort of kind of guy. So I do wonder if that's sort of sustainable in the World Cup. Like, does that work? Will that be overwhelming for teams? I'm not sure. Joachim Löw, the nose picker, they weren't really enjoying him towards his
No.
final days. So perhaps having a new manager in a new big tournament, they might actually step up for him, show him that this is what we needed. But like I always say with the Germans, Dave, they play a very aesthetically pleasing brand of football. I think they'll probably be the most exciting kind of team to watch, the most fun team to watch, so to speak. But they do not have watertight defenses, and they always like to concede goals. They love to leave a lot of green grass behind them. They are a very easy team to counterattack. That's where I kind of stand with the Germans, is like they might beat most teams by a lot of goals, but if they're not scoring goals, there's a good chance they'll concede goals. So it's a tough one because I don't think they're going to be a watertight defense. And I would rather put more confidence in a team that did have a watertight defense.
Do you know what, though, Jack? For me, I really like this Germany team. I think they've got a good mix in that team of experience and youngsters. When you look right through that team, I think they've got a solid back line. Like David Raum, he's had a breakout campaign.
Yeah.
He's good. Rudiger's, I think he's been pretty. I like Rudiger. You got Schlotterbeck, who you really love, Jack. You've got who else have you got there? Niklas Schule. They've got 3 good goalkeepers going. Neuer, Trapp, and Ter Stegen. Kimmich is in there. Mario Götze, just a shrewd operator, know-how. Jonas Hofmann, wasn't he the surprise inclusion? You've still got Leon Goretzka, who I love. Gundogan, Havertz, Musiala, Sane, Muller, Gnabry, Adeyemi, who you love, Xhaka, and Yusuf Moukoko. I think they've got a good mix of experience and youth. I actually see Germany going far, if I'm being brutally honest. I really like their manager. That
excites me.
And I really like that team. I'll be honest, I think they breeze this group. I think Spain are the ones in trouble, if I'm being brutally honest, because when people think of Spain, they think of I think it was World Cup, Euros, World Cup, or it was Euros, World Cup, Euros, 3 back-to-back competitions. But they don't talk about is how isolated Spain were from international football before that. They only really came to prominence with that team, and that's been and gone, and they're sort of leveling out again. For me, I think Spain are the ones in trouble. I think Germany pissed that group. I think Germany will go deep into the competition. I know you love to hear that as well.
I do love to hear that, but I always sort of I'm just very biased, as you know, when I come to them, and I'll admit it. No Tony Cruz though with this one, which I'm actually quite excited about and happy about. I feel like after he won the World Cup, I think he was never really the same player for Germany because the way they try to play, I just think he gets way too exposed. He's just not mobile enough. He's almost like a Busquets kind of playing in a German type style team, which I just don't think really works. I think he needs to be a whole lot more kind of, let's just say, kind of mobile to play in the type of style that they sort of.
Could he have went ahead of a Götze though, Jack? Mario Götze?
Probably, but maybe that was the reason, was that he didn't get along with certain players. Maybe there's certain reasons he was left off the plane for this one. Thomas Muller, though, last World Cup for him, and I did write chance for a golden boot, question mark, lol. I don't know. I'm just going to see Muller on in this tournament. I'll be happy to see him. If it isn't his last World Cup, that would be glorious. It does feel quite sad if this was the one for him, but I don't know. Love Thomas Muller. Love Manuel Neuer. 2 of my favorite players of all time, really. And so it's going to be nice to see if they do make that sort of run, like you said they did, Dave, because I think they deserve it. Absolute legends.
I think they will. I think they've got good quality right throughout the pitch, Jack, and they strength and depth as well.
Costa Rica, not much to say here. Honestly, just vibes is what I would say. Keylor Navas, Brian Ruiz, absolutely love that guy from back in the day. What a throwback.
They were one of an upset, though, Jack. They bet England in that 2014 World Cup in the group stage, didn't they?
Yeah, no, you're right, you are, Dave. It's just hilarious, though, that 2014 team is still there, like in this team. It's just, you find yourself almost nearly 10 years later, and it's still the same names: Keylor Navas, Brian Ruiz, and Joel Campbell. is still there, Dave. I mean, it's
Madness.
funny. I mean, it's
Joe
gonna
Campbell,
be
that's the guy that was at Arsenal, wasn't he?
yeah, it's vibes. It's vibes.
Mm,
Japan, I think are a bit of a sleeper team, very capable of taking out. I actually think a Germany or a Spain, maybe in this one, perhaps a victim of poor coaching or stubbornness. So I heard, but a lot of talented players
yes.
in this team. But Dave, unfortunately, a lot of those talented players have been left out from that Celtic squad. He actually didn't take it with him as many Celtic boys as I think he could have. I think it's a certain Furuhashi he didn't take with him, which is a bit of a
Should have took
disappointment.
him.
Yeah, and he should have took him. So, like I said, perhaps maybe some stubborn coaching
I
or
don't
some
see
poor
their
coaching.
midfielder in there either. That midfielder.
Let me check. I did write it down. I think they took one of the forwards actually with
Yeah, they
them,
took
Dave.
Maeda, but they didn't take that midfielder. He's
No, they
unbelievable.
only took one Celtic player with them, Dave. They left
I
out a
can't
lot
believe
of
they left
those.
out the midfielder. He's been unbelievable.
Yeah, I
And
know. Yeah.
Ferrassery has been better than Maeda as well. It's a bit of a
Yeah,
weird
it's a
one, that.
weird one, Dave. I don't know what's going on over there. So it's like I said, perhaps some stubborn coaching is what I'm trying to say. So that's why I wrote it down in my notes there. But I do think they have a much deeper, more strong squad than maybe people give them credit for.
Mm,
Yoshida, of course, experienced former Southampton player. Tomiyasu, we all know. Sakai, former Marseille player. Yuto Nagatomo, very big throwback. Former Inter player. He's like 40,000 years old at this stage. Ko Itakura, he plays over at Mönchengladbach, up and coming player, and then Hiroki Ito over at Stuttgart. It's very interesting, actually, the Japanese connection over in the Bundesliga. So it is a pretty solid defense. Wataru Endo, I would say, is very much the guy to look out for. I did see him suffer a concussion, though, recently against Hertha Berlin. So I'm going to see how he sort of
mm,
shows up for this one. He might not be all the way there yet. Stuttgart, though, he's over at Stuttgart. Minamino, of course, over at Monaco. There's a guy over in the French league. There's a guy, Ritsu Doan, who's over at PSV. He's over in Germany now. Marita, who played us, Dave, that guy for Sporting. I thought he was really good, actually.
mm.
Marita, he looked like a quality midfielder. So I think Marita and Wataru Endo, will be a really good midfield. I
Yeah.
just think this Japanese team, Dave, they're just going to be so hardworking. They're almost going to be a bit like the German team, in fact, where they
Mm,
probably might press teams a little bit. They might press teams quite hard, try to win the ball off you quite high up the
yeah.
pitch. They have really deadly and really tricky forwards with the likes of Kubo over at Real Sociedad. They have Kamada, of course, at Frankfurt. Matoma is that guy at Brighton who is very saucy, Matoma. And then, like you said, Daitsun Maeda as well. So lots of
He's a
tricky
real hard
wingers, creative
worker.
players. And this is where my prediction is going to go, Davo. Watch this.
Over
Japan's
Spain.
taking second.
Do you know what, Jack? There's always one upset in a group. I was actually gonna say this to you as well. For me, when with Japan, right? People they work their socks off. They run themselves into ground, and they actually play a decent brand of football. And if their team embodies what Maeda, whatever way you want to pronounce it, embodies at Celtic, honestly, they very well could beat Spain. They've got enough in the forward lines with Minamino, Mitoma, Maeda, and Kamada to be able to unlock that Spanish defense
Yeah.
and probably cause an upset there. So I'm gonna stick with you on that one, Jack. A bit disappointed didn't bring the Celtic midfielder. I think he's a
Yeah.
terrific player, but
Weird.
hey ho, it is what it is.
No, I think it's weird, Dave. I think it is weird. And someone confirmed it's a stubborn coach. So that could end up being the downfall of them, maybe, but you never know. The likes of Group F,
He made a quote, Jack, where he said he's going with what is it? I'll get it for you
more
now.
Japanese league players or something.
He said he's going with something over experience, or willingness over experience, or burning ambition over experience. Weird quote.
So he's going for more soldiers, I guess, in the team. I'm not sure.
And to be fair, Japan have history of getting out the groups to the last 16. So
I just don't think they're going to be an easy team. Like even if
no, they
and
won't.
that's what's weird about them, Davis. I think even if they didn't have all that forward power, all those kind of strikers to choose from, I feel like they'd still be a tough team to come up against.
Yeah,
They'd just be very stubborn, very difficult to break down, hardworking. We all know, pressing you, I would imagine too.
yeah,
But then they also now have good forwards to choose from, so that's kind of scary when you think about it.
yeah.
Group F, Belgium. I don't really ever take them seriously just because it's Roberto Martinez. I just don't rate that
Yeah.
guy. I think he's kind of a bit of a joke. I would say that defense is also going to be the downfall of them. I mean, we all love Vertonghen, we all love Alderweireld, but I think like it's a little ridiculous. I feel like he's got to take a look at that younger set of players that probably Belgium have, that younger
Yeah.
generation that's probably just waiting to be taken advantage of. But he continues to pick Vertonghen and he continues to pick Alderweireld. I think maybe Vertonghen you could have brought on the plane. I think he still has his class, but Alderweireld I know is past it. He's just past it. Wout Face is actually quite a good defender, so maybe he could be their saving grace actually for that defense. Actually, Wout Face, but really not a lot of good players to pick from. I never rated Thomas Meunier either. I don't think he's that great.
Mm,
Castagna could be good for them. I don't know. It's not a good defense. And I don't think Martinez is that great a defensive manager either. So
no, he's not.
question marks there. KDB, Onana, Tielemans, Witzel, Dendoncker, Hans
They were more than
Vanaken is
enough
actually
going
where I
forward.
think their strength is. This could actually be a big chance for Onana, Dave. Do you like that guy over at Everton?
I really
with
like him.
I think he could be good in this tournament. If he gets some playing time, he could end up getting, I think, some, I don't know, because you look at it, like I just said, they brought De Bruyne, him, Onana, Tielemans, Witzel, who I think is already old and past it.
Yeah.
Dendoncker is like sort of just, he's Dendoncker. Hans Vanaken, I like him, but he's more of just a bit of a hipster's
Mm.
choice, you could say. I don't know, Dave. Perhaps Onana could get a lot of playing minutes in this, and he could actually end up being a big player for them.
I really like what I've seen from him so far, Jack. He just causes a lot of trouble. He's always in the game, box to box midfielder. I know he more excels going forward, but I really like him. Um, but you know what, Jack? We're looking at that Belgium team. Yeah, defensively, I think they'd probably get caught out, but I think they're more than enough going forward. And the last couple of competitions, Belgium have had no problem sort of dominating the ball either. I think they'll get out of the group. I'm not sure how far they'll go, and I think this will be the end of Martinez.
Mm-hmm. Botter, I'm so sorry, my man, but like I said, I had to do the research, and the more I do the research, the more likely I am going to probably take a few digs at a team. But like I say, best of luck to you, my friend. Best of luck to you this tournament. When it comes to the attack, Dave, Lukaku hasn't really played many minutes. That's kind of a question mark. I do
It's
say
hard.
Luis Apenda, I think, is a good player. We played him actually. He was at Vitesse when we were
Mhm.
in the Conference League. I think he's a good player. But yeah, it's a weird front line too. Trossard is good, but I don't know. It's a weird front line. I just don't think the Belgians are actually going to be that great. Canada, this is the thing, is that if the Belgians aren't that great and Canada do step up, they do have a chance here. But I do feel bad for them because I don't think this is a really easy group for them. I think they probably would have done a lot better or would do a lot better if they had an
Mhm.
easier group. I just don't know if they really have the quality or the experience to go
Mhm.
into a tournament of this sort of quality because Dave, they don't really have any sort of solid goalkeeper.
The experience will catch up with them big time.
Their best goalkeeping option is like a guy that's like some 48-year-old over in Serbia for like Red Star Belgrade. Their back line is like mostly Montreal FC players. The
Yeah.
legend that is Atiba Hutchinson, who was over at Besiktas and then over in Norway or whatever it was for a long time. The dude's like also 40,000 years old. He's still in that Canadian team, bless his heart. So
Mhm.
much young talent in this team, though, Dave. I think they will be back for future tournaments. They did top the CONCACAF qualifying, so they beat us and Mexico to the
Mhm.
first place. So it does show that they are a good team. But I just think I don't know, like they just have holes, let's say, in quality. They have good players up front. They have Alfonso Davies, who will likely be playing up front. They have Tejan Buchanan, who's a great player. They have Jonathan David. They have this guy over at Porto named Eustakio, who looks like not a bad guy either. But it's kind of a weird thing, Dave. It's the definition of like Ferrari like players in certain positions and then like tugboat tractor like players in other positions. So
Here's the
it's a
thing, Jack.
bad mix. It's a bad
Yeah.
mix of quality, I think, this team.
Here's the thing. I think they find themselves unfortunate that they come up against two stalwarts of the previous Euros and World Cups that
Yeah.
have gone deep, as
Yeah.
seasoned professionals in Belgium and Croatia who just have that tournament experience, that know how to be able to grind out results, get results when needed. And I think, look, yeah, it's exciting for them coming in, this, that, and the other, Jack. But I just don't think they have anywhere near enough strength in depth to be able to compete. Look, I'll be honest. I actually think they're going to come bottom of the group.
Hmm. Yeah, it's sad to say, but
Experience
we'll
does come
compare it to
in
Morocco.
the World Cup. It is a thing.
Let's just compare him to Morocco just to prove you right, Dave. I think Morocco, apparently, like you said, victim of maybe internal struggles and kind of some soap opera sort of stuff, like you said, kind of always in the background. Very poor coaching sometimes too, but they just have better players to choose from than Canada do. They have Sevilla's goalkeeper, Yassine Bounou, who's not a bad keeper at all. They have Naif Aguerd, that West Ham guy who they bought for a lot of money. They have a lot of Ligue 1 defenders, like starting Ligue 1 players. And this is kind of the difference, I mean, Dave, is that, I mean, even though we're talking about Ligue 1, that's still miles better than like 8 Montreal FC players to be picking from. Like, I just think it's these sort of levels that will maybe be the downfall of Canada, because also that Morocco team, they have Roman Saiss. I mean, he's old, but he's still a great player, I think. Mazraoui, Hakimi, they have a really young guy over at Real Valladolid. I don't know, Dave. They just have a good defense by the looks of it, Morocco. They have a good midfield with some, guys that are kind of just scattered about Europe by the looks of things. Again, that's something I can't really say about the Canadian team, with players being kind of scattered about Europe. It's more in the front line that they have players representing in Europe. And then the attack, they have good players. They have Ziyech, they have En-Nesyri, who's over at Sevilla. I really like him. Sofiane Boufal, if he's actually feeling it, he can be crazy good if he's actually up for it. I just, you look at like the whole squad. If you just look at the whole list of players, I just think, Dave, Morocco, I don't know. They just have better players to pick from. They do. And that's all it is, really. And so, I don't know. I feel bad for the Canadians. I feel bad for them. Yeah.
The starting 11 Morocco will be able to put out won't be bad, by the way. They've got more than enough players playing around Europe, like you went through there, Jack. I think if they do get out of the groups, I think where it might catch up with them is maybe injuries or that. If they get a couple of injuries. Some of the backups maybe nowhere near as good as some of the players at the starting lineup. But yeah, look, I think Morocco, I think they'll come third in the group.
Yeah. Croatia, I don't know. It's sort of the last World Cup for a lot of them. It's the last World Cup for a lot of them. So this is interesting. They've decided to bring a much more experienced team, let's say, the Croatians than usual. It's 18 itches that they decided to bring with them, Dave. They had the opportunity to bring more, decided to leave some out. I don't know, big call by the manager there to not bring more itches. I think usually 20 is probably what you should be going for. But, not my call.
But, they've got 16 going though, Jacko. Yeah. They do. Like,
the back line is what I wrote down is so much better, Dave. Sutalo over at Zagreb is a big up-and-coming player. Gavardiol, Stanisic over at Bayern is not a bad kid. Borna Sosa, Juranovic over at Celtic. I don't know, Dave. That back line is actually
I like better. Vida as well. Damagoj Vida. Yeah, I know he's older now. He's older, but you know what, Jack? He gives these all for Croatia. I like him.
No, he's a legend. He's a legend. He actually kind of looks like a Targaryen, funny enough.
Yeah.
Midfield, Modric, Brozovic, Kovacic, Pasalic. I mean, it's just stupid.
Lovermeyer. Jakic is in there. We got Jakic.
Yeah, we have Jakic. He's going to be doing the work. Absolutely. He's actually more of a grafter, if anything, actually, in that team. He'll be kind of brought on for a bit of housery, actually. He's actually kind of like me, Dave, if I were in that Croatian team. He's just going to be brought on to basically just break some ankles and just sort of do a bit of housery for them. So I kind of like it, actually. A bit of a Jakic in there.
Midfield is their strongest part of that team, Jack.
I've heard that Vlasic is actually doing really well in the Serie A too, so I'm not mistaken too. So he's actually carrying some good form going into this one. The attack is a bit weird though, and I think Shamu would agree with us, Dave, because Kramaric always plays terrible for Croatia. He always plays really bad for them. Even though he's a baller in the Bundesliga, he always plays terrible for them. Perisic, Orsic, Petkovic, Budimir, Livaja, Dave, it's kind of really mostly experienced players that they've gone for. Petkovic is the youngest of them, apart from Livaja, at 28. So it's a bit weird here that they've gone for a very experienced front line, let's say. We must say, though, Orsic is definitely that guy. He can be scary. He can be scary.
For me, he'd be the guy I'd be leaning on for goals. I like Petkovic, Jack. He's sort of like He can hold up the ball. He's a good, strong player. Can make a goal. Look, Perisic providing with some assists. Look, just what I could say, Jack. The steely Croatians, they all know how to handle themselves. They've all got a steely mentality. Trust me, never write off Croatia. They
No,
always
never.
do well. Was it in the World Cup? Was it '98? Where they had who was it? Davor Suker or Hakan Suker? It was one of them. He was unbelievable, banging in goals. Now I love Croatia, Jack. I think defense is a lot better than the defense they had going into the last tournament. I think midfield, for me, that's where it's at. They'll just keep the ball all day long.
Yeah, you're not winning the ball back off that midfield. You're not
with Orsic, like Dynamo Zagreb, also with Petkovic,
an X factor.
Always nick a goal. Always nick a goal.
And he's got a good finish on him. We know Orsic does. He's got a good finish on him.
Badr is actually.
I love that Badr is actually saying that while Saudi Arabia have a terrible team, they actually have a really good coach, which is sort of interesting.
You haven't gone into Lovren Meyer, Jack. You rave about this guy. I really like him.
I only have so much time, Davo. Really, I could do this for 8 hours here with all the research. And you see the list right now. You saw all the research I did. I could go on for 8 hours if I wanted to. But, I'm trying to be respectful of everybody here. So, Belgium, I'm actually going to go second. Croatia first.
Yeah.
Morocco third. Canada fourth. This Belgium is weird because I just don't have confidence in them, but I just don't know if Morocco or Canada are actually good enough to beat them. I don't rate Belgium, but I don't know if any teams in there are actually good enough to really beat them, is what I would say. Because they also have a bit of experience, like you kind of said, Dave, the Belgians too, and that can't be overridden. But Group G, Brazil. I mean, I think the other tournament favorites here, boys, everybody. Good vibes also in the dressing room, kind of like the Argentina squad. Very, no real clicks or anything going on. That's any problems. Some questionable coaching, I could say, maybe with Tite, but I'm not sure. I think it just seems to be like everything's kind of going okay over there. So it could be actually that while the coaching might not be like Hansi Flick levels of, intelligence, it still is probably good enough to get it done. For goalkeeper, I think it should be Alisson. I think he's actually a better shot stopper than Ederson is. I think Ederson is great with the ball at his feet, but I think Alisson is actually going to save them in games. Like if they need a one-on-one save, it's going to be Alisson that I think they need to rely on. That defense is where the question mark is, and it's mostly the fullbacks is where the question mark is because they have really great center backs to choose from. They have Thiago Silva, Marquinhos, Bremer, Eder Militao, so they're covered on center backs. It's just the fullbacks. It's just weird. Like Dani Alves, like come on, that's kind of a joke. If you ask me to put him in the team,
Emerson's not there.
I mean, I think they'd be winning the World Cup. Absolute favorites if Emerson is in that squad and they picked him instead of Dani Alves. Danilo, like I think he's been okay, but I've never really rated him as a fullback of any sort. Alex Telles is also okay. Alexandro is just past it. Alexandro is so past it. He's just past it. So I'm concerned about fullbacks. And in fact, that's what, again, maybe Argentina might have above Brazil is just the defense is a bit more solid, is what I would actually argue. Or at least the fullbacks are a bit better, but really good center backs. In fact, probably better center backs than even Argentina have to pick from. Unbelievable center backs. Midfield. Here's the thing, Dave. I rate Bruno Guimaraes so high that this is another reason why I think Brazil are heavy favorites because they basically have, in my opinion, one of the best midfielders in the world in Bruno Guimaraes. And if you put him alongside Lucas Paqueta and like a Casemiro or something like that, I mean, that's just a ridiculous midfield. It's just ridiculous. I think Bruno G, it's like chocolate with anything, Dave. It just goes well with anything, Bruno G. He's just that good, I think. And so you combine Bruno Guimaraes with anybody, it's a damn good looking midfield.
Do you know what? I'm just not sure the strength and depth is there in that midfield. You got Fabinho, Casemiro, Guimaraes. Brilliant. Fred, shit. Lucas Paqueta hasn't turned up in the Premier League yet. Ribeiro, shit. I think, I don't know, lad. If they get an injury to that midfield, then they could be exposed down the sides as well. I think they'll go far. I don't think they'll win it. I just think they're a bit short. Look, for me, when I look at this Brazil team, right, people got to remember, I've watched Brazil, the 2002 team, the 98 team. I've watched Rivaldo, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Kaká. Juninho, the guy that used to Pernambucano that used to
Yeah,
put the free kicks in
Juninho,
for
right?
sport. When I look at this Brazil team, now Brazilians have always enjoyed themselves, right? But when I look at this Brazil team, I think, yeah, they enjoy themselves. I'm just not sure that hard work or that willingness to go the extra mile is in this squad. I just don't believe it.
Yeah, and
Definitely not compared to years gone by. Yeah, they enjoyed themselves, but they also work
you're right.
hard and have
Actually,
willingness.
it's nowhere near as deep as Argentina's. The starting 11 is going to be insane. Like their starting 11
Yeah.
is crazy good. The fullbacks are a question mark, but the starting 11 is going to be crazy good. But you're right. If Bruno Guimaraes gets hurt, a huge loss. Casemiro gets hurt, huge loss.
They're a bit raw
Um,
in the forward areas as well, in my opinion.
it's the forward areas are strange because I feel like they just have a lot of the same. They have a lot of the same type of players,
Yeah.
and that's where I'm confused about because I think Neymar is in fact one of the most versatile of actually any of those forwards. So I'm curious about where Neymar plays. Does he play left wing or does he play up top? Because they have Vinicius Jr. as well, who I actually think is basically the other best left winger in the world at this moment in time, Vinicius Jr. So what do they do there, Dave? I'm actually going to ask you seriously because Vinicius Jr., we all know, is like in form and everything. Like
Yeah.
he basically is the best left winger in the world. Like when you look at form and, just like the kid's just ridiculous at this moment in time. Neymar, like he likes the left wing. They both play the same position. What do you do there? And like that means who do you play at right wing? And is it Rafinha? Like how do you go about it then? Like because it's
I'll
it's
be
kind of
honest with you.
strange.
I think Neymar and Vinicius Jr. have to start either side. They just
Yeah.
they just have to start either side. I think Gabriel Jesus will start up top. He's been in better form than Richarlison. Richarlison back from a long-term injury. But look, Rafinha at Barcelona, Rodrigo, Anthony. I just think they're going to have to play a bit of a backup role, to be honest with you, Jack. I think they're just that Martinelli as well. Look, he's capable of goals, but when I look at it, like international football is a different level at times, especially when you're going
Yeah.
into World Cups and stuff like that. And I'll be honest, I just think they're. I look at that forward line. I just think it's a bit raw, Jack.
Interesting. And lacking what though?
I think they're capable of some magic moments, but I also think there'll be times where you'll be deeply frustrated with a lot of them.
Mm.
I'm
Here,
just
I
not
would
sure they all have. I'm just not sure. I think that they have that enough experience or enough of that cutting edge when they come up against the bigger dogs.
maybe, but I have so much confidence in Neymar right now. I really do. Like I just Neymar right now, he's just playing out of his skin. And when Neymar is playing out of his
True.
skin, he can like Dave, you've seen it before. He just takes it past anybody he wants. And once he's
Mhm,
doing that sort of and when he's motivated, when he's really behind it,
mhm,
like he'll just be terrifying. Like he's terrifying when I think he's really feeling himself. And so what
mhm.
maybe I would do actually is if you were to play Gabriel Jesus, you could go Vinicius Jr., Neymar up top, Gabriel Jesus on the right, who sort of also a striker, right at the same time. So I don't know. That could be interesting. They have different combinations. I'm not too worried about the forward line as much as you are, Dave. Mostly because I think Neymar is carrying in. I mean, let's be honest. Like he has, what is it, the most goal contributions of any forward in Europe at this moment in time. So the guy is just the most informed striker or whatever. He's like more informed than Holland is at this moment in time. Like
Mhm.
going into things, the kid is just ridiculous. So that's where I'm kind of standing on it. Is that if Neymar has superpowers, I can't ignore it. But
Yeah, fair
Serbia,
enough.
Dave, Serbia, 25 out of 26 itches have been brought to Qatar. It's just
That's
glorious.
mad.
It's a tear in my eye to see this many itch representations over in Qatar. It's just glorious. Normally, they are quite an awful team to watch. I think Serbia,
Got a good squad
but
this time
it's
around.
but they always have good players, Dave. But I think it's a victim of bad coaching, right? Where they are quite awful to watch but they always have good players. It's kind of this weird dynamic there.
Mhm.
You look at that defense, like it's not the flashiest of names, but it's like solid, experienced players there in that defense. They're probably the tallest team, I think, in this whole tournament too. Like almost every single player in that Serbia team, Dave, is like 5'10" above too, when you look at
Yeah.
it. So it's a lot of big, scary guys as well. The midfield is almost kind of like a hipster's version of Croatia, as you
Yeah,
could say, with
yeah.
Tadic. You have Kostic. You have the likes of what's his face as well. Of course, Milinkovic Savic. The likes of Racic is actually not bad too. I've seen
Lazovic.
him before at Valencia. Ivan Ilic is a really young player that's up and coming at this moment. Lazovic, like you said. So the Verona players are there. And then you also go up top. You have Mitrovic,
Yeah,
Jovic, Vlahovic.
yeah.
It's just vibes. Like it really is this team. And the only player that is of non-itch origin is Gudeli, actually, who's over at Sevilla. So, Dave, I don't know. I think Serbia, I'm going to be rooting for them very hard. The question always is with them is that they have very good players to pick from. They always are just a victim, I think, of bad coaching. And they're always a victim of just kind of drab football when, in fact, they actually
Mm.
have good players. So I don't know with the Serbs. It's an interesting one. They could be really good dark horses, or they could end up kind of disappointing us. That's how I kind of see it. They could end up disappointing us, or they could end up being just as good as
Mm.
maybe we might hype them up to be.
Do you know what? I don't know, Jack. I think they beat Switzerland. Cameroon haven't really turned up to a World Cup since the 1990s, since the great Roger Miller. I don't know, Jack. I think they'll get out second. I think they've got enough in
All right.
midfield. I think they've got enough firepower. And with the Serbs, you know they're going to be strong and physical. I think
Mhm.
Switzerland, another team, they're strong and physical. I just think Serbia will have enough, Jack. I think they have that bit more of a dog about them. I think they want it more.
Two good teams, actually, Serbia and Switzerland. That's what's kind of disappointing, I think, is that Switzerland are almost a team that might be good enough to get into the knockout rounds. And then I think Serbia are a good enough team that maybe deserve enough to be there. So it's the battle between the two. Serbia, all I would maybe add with them is that not much has changed with their squad, other than that maybe Granit Xhaka is actually carrying more form than he ever has, right, going into it. He is their best player. He always is really good for Serbia, for Switzerland, but now he actually is having good form with the Gooners. Does that mean he ends up being even more ridiculous for Switzerland? Because he always plays well for Switzerland, but can he actually then be even better now that he actually has good form over with the Gooners? I would say Noah Okafor is the guy to look out for. I actually like him. He's actually over at Salzburg. They have good
Mm.
midfielders to pick from. Jabril So, Granit Xhaka, Dennis Zakaria, Shaqiri, Remo Freuler, good midfielders. The players up top that are kind of dismal, let's be honest. Haris Seferovic, though, David Harris is up top, though, for the likes of the Swiss. So we will get to see some Harris representation. And Harris,
There's a Harris that plays for Wales as well that got called up.
oh, that's good. So we get to it. So we have the
Strong
Welsh version
representation.
of a Harris, and then we have the itch version of a Harris that's in the World Cup. With Cameroon, let's just see if they can make an upset. I don't really think they're going to go anyplace, but they do have some secretly good players. Let's just mention some of them. Andre Onana, of course, is their goalkeeper. If you didn't realize, they have a lot of good Liga kind of like defenders, sort of kind of scattered across Europe by the looks of things. So again, kind of similar to that Senegal team and that sort of a Cameroon sort of not, or I think the Ghana
Mm.
team as well, where it's like good defenders scattered across Europe. Zambo and Gisa at Napoli
Yeah.
is basically one of the most informed midfielders right now. So that is definitely something to take a look at, but it's really no one else other than Ngisa. So he'll be kind of on his own there. Vincent Abubakar, absolute FIFA legend back in the day. But will he actually turn it on in real life? He used to be good. Like he was good for like a season or two in real life.
Mm.
But we'll see how he does it for the Cameroonians. Choupo-Moting is carrying in crazy good form going into it. Nkudu, former Spurs player, is called up. Mbuemo over at Brentford. A guy named Jean-Pierre Nsame, who's a guy over in the Swiss league, funny enough. So he actually might know some of these Swiss players. Is actually scoring a lot of goals over there. So there's something to take a look at. And then Toko Akambi. So I actually didn't know this. Cameroon have a lot of good players up top to choose from, like really good players, funny enough, up top to choose from. So that will be interesting, actually. But I'm still going to go Brazil, Serbia, Swiss, Cameroon. I actually think, Dave, this is a group of death, and I actually think all these teams are actually quite good, if
Do you
that
know
makes any
what?
sense. I think Cameroon,
Yeah.
even with those forwards that we just mentioned, like those are 4 forwards that I'd be like, it's quite good actually to have that many forwards for a team like Cameroon to pick from. So I don't know. I feel like they're not, they're not chumps really. These teams, they're
I
actually
think with
quite good.
Cameroon, I think
Yeah,
with Cameroon, Jack, I think look, they go there, they have a good time, but they don't really do too well. I think Akambi
you're
would
right.
probably be the star player. I think he was their top scorer at the AFCON. Look, with Switzerland, when I look at their backline, Jack, you'll get at them all day long. Ireland has played them a couple of times, and we are useless going forward. But we got at that backline. For me, I just can't look by Serbia, to be honest, to finish second behind Brazil, Jack. And
Mm.
correct me if I'm wrong, I think they also finished ahead of Portugal in the qualifying group, which was a surprise. So for me, I'll go with Brazil and Serbia to get out of this.
Yeah. All right. I'm with you there, Davo. I'm with you there. Let's root on the Serbs, everybody. I'm looking forward to doing some watch alongs with those Serbians. Group H, Portugal, I think, are going to be a victim of poor coaching. The squad is like France's, though, where it's just absolutely ridiculous. The goalkeeper is a question mark, though. Dave, I want you to answer this. Do you go with the hipster's choice of Diogo Costa, that guy that everybody wants, us Spurs
Is that
fans
the
to
guy
take a
John
look at?
Stokes said saved all them penalties?
Yeah, the guy John Stokes said saved all the penalties. The guy who's really good with his feet that everybody wants, maybe instead of like a Bazunu, let's say. They also have Jose Sa, to pick from, and Rui Patricio. So they have the choice of experience with
Oh,
Patricio. They have Jose Sa, who's, I think we all know, a good shot stopper, or they have the kind of the more hipster's choice with Diogo Costa. So it's kind of an interesting one, Dave. Who would you go for goalkeeper?
correct me if I think Patricio is their number one. I really like Jose
In the
Sa.
past he's been, but Jose
I'd go
Sa
with
we know
Sa.
is good. Jose Sa
I'd
we
go
know
with
is good.
Sa.
Yeah.
That's who I'd go with. I'd go with
So
Sa.
okay, I'm kind of feeling that. I would go with maybe Diogo Costa, but
He's only a
if I'm
youngster,
actually he's more of a youngster. He's like 24 or 25, I think. I would go Jose Sa if you were to combine experience with maybe someone different. I just don't think Patricio is
mm-hmm.
actually that great of a shot stopper really anymore. I think he's kind of going
Mm-hmm.
through a Lloris like kind of downfall right now. Defense, Joao Cancelo, I think basically hands down one of the best fullbacks in the world. Diogo
Mm-hmm.
Dallo, Nuno Mendes over at PSG is also brilliant.
Ruben
Ruben
Diaz,
Diaz, Pepe.
Guerrero.
Thank God they brought Pepe on the plane. Just absolute vibes. Danilo Pereira, Antonio Silva, who's apparently a really up and coming
Yeah,
Benfica player. Really up and
yeah.
coming one. Really good by the looks of things. I don't know a single thing about him, Dave, but the research I did, apparently he's supposed to be very good.
Nah, he's
And then
supposed to be
Rafa
very
Guerrero.
decent.
So that
I
defense,
like
Dave, is
Rafael
just
Guerrero.
ridiculous.
Yeah, their defense is absolutely ridiculous. It's a good defense, a very good defense. Midfield isn't bad either.
What do you do? Ruben Diaz plus Pepe? What is that? Where you go?
I think Pepe will play. Yeah, I think it will be
Oh,
Ruben Diaz,
yes.
Pepe. For me, I would go with Guerrero at left back and Cancelo at right back. That's what I'll be doing. Um, but yeah, look, Antonio Silva. It'll be interesting to see if he gets minutes. If Brazil can, be out of the group after 2 games, they might throw some minutes to him. But I would like to see what he's like. But the midfield, though, Jack, Ruben Diaz, Paulinho, that William
The
Carvalho
best
guy, he's been
midfield in the
around
tournament is what
a
I
long
wrote down.
time.
Best
Danilo
midfield options.
Pereira, Vitina. Oh, lad, it's ridiculous.
I think it's
It's
the best
ridiculous.
midfield options in the tournament. I really do think it
Bananas.
is. Like they just have
Bananas.
everything. They have steel with Polina. They
Yeah.
have cleverness with Neves. They have the creativity with Bernardo Silva and Bruno Fernandes. It's just stupid. The
Ridiculous.
attack, Ronaldo, Gonçalo Ramos, I guess is also another up and coming Benfica player we need to take a look at. Rafael Leao is absolutely silky. I don't know. It's kind of like France, Dave, where I think this Portugal squad is so good, but maybe they might be a victim of bad coaching and things like that. You never know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Get out of the group. I'm not sure they'll win it, though.
yeah, that's for sure. Ghana, not really much to say here. Goalkeeper, no real quality. Defense, there's Daniel Amarte and Salisu to pick from. Also, actually, Tarek Lamptey, funny enough, has now become a Ghanaian international. Dennis Adoy is actually a big up-and-coming player I've heard of at Club Brugge. Midfield, Mohamed Kudus, that guy over at Ajax, has had an absolute crazy season.
Yeah.
So he's definitely someone to take a look at. And then Thomas Partey, I guess, too. Jordan Ayew, funny enough, Crystal Palace. You can't escape him, it feels like. Iñaki Williams is actually no longer a Spanish international. He's actually decided to become a Ghanaian, Dave. So Iñaki Williams over at Ghana, kind of crazy. I think that's a huge pickup. And then also somebody for me to keep an eye on for the hipster's choice, Bukhari is this up and coming Ghanaian player over at Red Star Belgrade, which is one of those great hipster teams.
What I will
Everybody,
say about Ghana, Jack, is the last World Cup they were at, they went pretty far, didn't they? Wasn't it Luis
they take
Suarez's
it
handball?
seriously. They're like Senegal. They take it seriously. I think
Don't get me wrong. I don't think they have a good squad. It's the time where they went deep, where Suarez ended up handballing and getting sent off, and Uruguay still went through. I don't think they'll get to that stage again. But for me, with Ghana, you never know, Jack. They're a mixed bag. They're a mixed bag.
We'll see how they handle Uruguay,
They
Dave.
won't get out of the group. They won't get out of the group, though. This is the toughest group for me. This is the tightest group.
Yeah, it's the hardest one to pick, maybe. But Uruguay, Dave, it's going to be hilarious to see the reunion between those two teams and see Luis Suarez, see how he reacts. I think it's actually definitely a stronger Uruguay than maybe I thought it would have been like 2 or 3 years ago. That's what I wrote down. Like, if you asked me 2 or 3 years ago, would this Uruguay squad look as good as it does now? I probably wouldn't have thought it would. Big question mark with Muslera, though. Like, he's kind of like an Ochoa kind of guy. Like, he's like Ochoa, I think, Dave. Like, what is he still doing there kind of situation?
He's like 40.
I just don't even know. We'll see how it goes. Godin is still there, which is absolutely hilarious. I love that Godin is still there. One of the best shit houses of all time. Jimenez is there too. Great player. Ronald Araujo, that Barcelona player, he's great. Sebastian Coates, who we saw over at Sporting.
So it's like a retirement village.
It is a retirement village, but good players, actually, funny enough, for a retirement village of center backs. Matias Vina, I've heard good things about over at Roma. Same thing with Oliveira. I've heard really good things about over at Napoli. And then Caceres is still there. Laugh my ass off is what I wrote as well. A very solid defense with a good mixture of young and old is what I would say. Midfield, good shithousery there too, Dave. Midfield, it's just probably their strength is what I would say. Ugarte over at Sporting's a good player. Bentancur, Federico Valverde, Lucas Torreira, Matias Vecino. It's brilliant, Dave. It's probably one of the better midfields. It's not the strongest in depth, the midfield, but it's good
hard.
Though. Yeah.
Works hard working.
And then Luis Suarez and Cavani, Dave, and then Darwin Nunez. What's weird, though, is which one is going to be scoring the goals? Because are they going to have to rely on Nunez, Dave, or is it going to be Luis Suarez that's going to tap into the old form?
Do you know what, Jack? It'd be interesting. Look, for me, what I'd be doing is I'd be playing Suarez straight through the middle, Darwin Nunez probably off the left, and Pellistri, the young guy from United, on the right. And that's what I would be doing personally. But look, with Cavani maybe coming off the bench and maybe swapping with Suarez, because you would say the two of them probably won't last 90 minutes in that heat at the World Cup. So I think they'd probably rotate between them. But they've got a good enough midfield and a good enough forward line and a good experienced shithouse back line as well. Yeah. So they're going to be one of them teams. They might not absolutely blow the socks off you, but they're going to be difficult to beat. And you're going to have to earn your right to beat these, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Dave. It's not going to be pretty, and you're going to have to earn it in order to beat them. Yeah. South Korea, I feel like they'll be kind of similar to Japan in that they'll be very hard to beat. They'll be very together. They'll be a team. They'll be all in it. They'll be hardworking. I just don't know if they're as talented of a squad as maybe Japan's is. So I don't know if they would make as much of like a dark horse run as, let's say, a Japan might. But nonetheless, I think there's still some good players there. No strong keeper options over for South Korea. So that is a concern. They don't really have any good goalkeepers by the looks of things. Kim Min-jae, I think, is sort of the main center back. They're going to combine him with whichever. I think K-League players are probably the best to go with him. Not sure which central midfielders they have to pick from either. Like, not a lot of great options from what I can tell. But I'm not super knowledgeable in K-League. But they do have some notable forwards. They have Wang Hee-chan over at Wolves. They have Jong Woo-young over at Freiburg, who I actually do like. Lee Kang-in, Dave and I both like at Mallorca. Yeah. We did a reaction to him. Yeah. And then Won Hee-jo over at Olympiacos is not too shabby either. But like I said, I think they're going to be kind of similar to Japan in the way that they play. Very tough team to break down, very hardworking. But I just don't know if the squad is nearly as good as maybe a Japan squad is. So this is how I'm going to do it, Dave. This is the hardest one, but I'm gonna go Uruguay first.
Ooh. Ooh.
And then I think Korea or Ghana have a really strong chance
I'll
here
be
to
honest.
actually. I think they have a really strong chance, Korea or Ghana, but I
Let me
am
tell you
gonna
what
go
I predict
Portugal.
first. Let me tell you what I
Yeah,
predict first, just quickly, right?
yeah.
I think Uruguay and Portugal will draw. I think it'll come down to who gets the most goals against Ghana and Korea. I think they'll come out
Whoa.
same points. I think it'll end in goal difference.
Will it be one of those games then where it's like the final game, like they're listening to the goals of the other game
Yeah,
and things like that?
yeah.
Oh, that sounds
That's what
glorious.
I predict.
I might go this actually, and then I might throw Korea last, unfortunately. I think I might do this.
Ooh.
That Ghana team, it's more impressive than I thought it was. The Ghana team, if I'm going to be honest, I think there's some players in there like the Iñaki Williams. I think is a huge pickup.
Yeah,
Muhammad Kudus is a huge pickup. There are just some players in there, like, and also Salisu. We all know is a good defender. It's between Ghana and Korea, but I just think Ghana have some players that maybe normally they wouldn't. I
yeah.
expect them to have that they actually do. So there it is, everybody. Let us just a sec. Let's pull this out here. So there it is. So I went for Group A: Netherlands, Senegal, Ecuador, Qatar, England, Wales are advancing through. Argentina, Mexico are getting through. Croatia, Belgium getting through. Germany, Japan getting through. Denmark, France are getting through. And then the likes of Brazil and Serbia and Uruguay and Portugal. Feels like some controversial ones there. I'm not sure, but let's get ready for the knockouts here, everybody. Netherlands and Wales. Gonna have to go for the Dutch
Netherlands.
here, I think, in this one. Argentina and France. We're going to go for the
Oh,
Argentinians. Dave, no way. That favorites, Dave. That's how it's going to happen. This is what you have to take into consideration is these
Argentina
lineups.
will get it. Argentina will get beat France, but it's about watering.
Sometimes it's unlucky, right? How it ends up being
Yeah,
with the brackets here. Germany, I think, are going to smack the
Germany.
Belgians. I
Yeah,
think they're going to smack the
they'll get out
Belgians.
that back line. Brazil.
Brazil, England. Oh,
Denmark.
Senegal. That'd be funny if they did pull off an upset, but I don't know if
No,
I
they
see it
won't.
happening.
Denmark.
Denmark for sure. Oh,
Croatia.
Denmark, England rematch is going to be glorious. Croatia.
Uruguay.
Oh, come on, the Serbs. I'm going to go Uruguay. And then I'm going to go
Croatia.
Croatia here. I'm going to go Croatia here. I am going to go Denmark. I think Denmark, I think, are just going to be tough. I think they're going to be tough. I can't see the English go that far, Dave. Really can't.
No. Who are you going to go with between Germany and Brazil, though, Jack?
Hansi Flick, the mastermind behind the 7-1, Dave. Could have happened again. It's the same
I
fullbacks.
would go
It's actually
Germany.
hilarious. The same fullbacks that he took advantage of the last time. It was Danny Alves and Marcelo, right? Who he took advantage of in that game. He might do it all over again, Hansi Flick. I
I'd go
actually,
Germany. I
I'm
think
going to
they'll
go
outwork the
Brazil just
Brazilian
because
team.
I rate the Brazilians this year. I do rate the Brazilians.
Whoa.
Denmark, Croatia.
Croatia. Easy.
I don't know, Dave. Hoiberg. You
Nah,
never know.
the experience. They have the experience. I love Zinedine Salzburg, but trust me, just Croatia. They always do well. Always.
John Stokes wants me to do the scores. Should I be doing the scores?
Nah,
No.
nah.
Sorry, John. Sorry, brother.
Too much, John. Too much.
Yeah, I've already spent so much on those profiles, John, nerding out over that. I'm sorry, my man. Denmark.
It's your call. It's your channel. You
I
go with
do
who you
want to
want.
pick Denmark. I want to pick Denmark. I'm feeling it,
You
Dave.
pick who you want,
I'm
Jacko.
picking
You pick who you
Denmark. I'm
want.
going for it. Denmark going to the final. That's what I'm saying. It
Argentina.
sounds ludicrous. That sounds ludicrous. And then I'm going to Argentina. Argentina win it all. Whatever. But Dave, what are your thoughts on that?
I enjoyed that, actually. I actually enjoyed this show more than what I thought I would. Do you know what? I've done fuck all prep going into this World Cup. This is really,
Well, now you have a cheat sheet.
got me excited. Yeah, your cheat sheet helped. I was doing a bit of research as it was going along there as well. Yeah, do you know what, Jack? I think it could be the World Cup of South Americans. I think the climate will suit them. I think the hot weather will suit them. And they're the most gifted. So for me, yeah, look, I'm excited for the World Cup. I'm excited.
Brazil Argentina semifinal. That is just absolutely ridiculous. I mean,
Argentina to turn them
the
over again.
earth would be shaking. Like the earth will be shaking, like with intensity after that one. But
Yeah.
there you are, everybody. It's been a long time since I've done videos over on the Flat Cap. I thought I would go really hard on this World Cup predictions video. I understand it's not like a super easy 20-minute one that you can sort of watch, but I thought maybe instead I'd sort of not cheat you on the research, not cheat you on all that sort of kind of prediction, and really go hard on my sort of in-depth kind of research for this one. So that's my predictions. I actually think I went with some pretty ludicrous predictions because I did so much research going into it. If I probably had done less, I maybe probably would have had more sensible predictions, I imagine. But that's how it is maybe when you overthink things. But everybody, I really do appreciate you all tuning in. I really do appreciate you all putting your comments in as well and just kind of sticking with me. I know this channel is a bit dormant at times, but it really is nice to see all you, so many of you still tune in and so many of you still continue to engage. It really is an absolute pleasure. But I think we'll leave it there, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the World Cup as well to the best of your abilities. Dave and I, we will be back on the Irish Hotspur. We're going to be kind of figuring out, I think, the schedule and all that sort of stuff with the type of content. It's going to be different types of content over this World Cup break as well. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there, everybody. A big come on you Spurs from ourselves. And I think I will be seeing you. Not sure when I'll be back with a video, but I promise it won't be too long, and I won't wait nearly as long as I did last time. But everybody, really appreciate the support. We'll be seeing you. Goodbye.
Come on, you Spurs.